Meeting for December 20th, 2023. Sam, roll call, please.
Bhatia,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Washburn,
Here.
Driver,
Here.
Rissler,
Here.
Van Beckham,
Here.
and Bozanovsky is absent. But we have a quorum.
All right, next on the agenda will be, under new business, 4607 Lathrop Avenue Certified Survey Map, CSM 23-14.
Minutes of the meeting.
Pardon me, I'm sorry, yes, I did.
you missed a couple of meetings,
There you go, okay. Next will be the approval of the meeting minutes for November 15th.
Move to approve the minutes from November 15th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I abstain, I was not here.
I abstain as well.
2 abstentions on that. Okay. All right, now we will get to the Lathrop Avenue Certified Survey Map.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the applicant applied to redivide one parcel, that's Lot 1, and create 3 parcels along the east side of Lathrop Avenue. The applicant is Co. Krager and Nielsen Madsen on their behalf. They also own the land. The application follows the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan. The master bicycle plan recommends an on-street trail or bicycle way along Lathrop Avenue. A park and open space plan for the Village of Mount Pleasant 2050 recommends protecting the environmental corridors contained within the subject property. As some notes, I will skip ahead all the way to our fiscal note to start with. That's the evaluation of the development's contribution to and demands from the village. If you look at the productivity at the end, the estimated taxable value per acre is about just under $600,000 an acre, which gives us gain loss over a 40-year period, essentially a village loss of $111,000. And I wanted to highlight this because it's a unique situation insofar as the on a year-over-year basis now, the development would actually be positive cash flow, but due to long-term estimates of construction costs increasing faster than the village's tax levy has increased, using 5-year historic averages, over 40 years extrapolated, that means that the construction costs in 40 years far outpace how much the village is spending on its annual paving budget, which is why you see that loss figure there. Just a unique circumstance. There's a fair amount of property here left, and the zoning has some flexibility, which we'll get into in a sec, so those could help mitigate those issues. For that fiscal analysis, we assumed improvement values on lots 2 and 3 equal to the existing improvement value on lot 1, which is like $720,000. The developer could reduce developed acres by a permanent protection or dedication of land surrounding the lower Sorensen Creek, which would actually boost the taxable value per acre as well. So all the lands that are essentially undevelopable, 150 feet on each side of the Sorensen Creek, are part of those lots. And if you remove that, obviously, they're getting penalized essentially at this point for having a bunch of undevelopable land in those lots. Subnote 3 for the fiscal note, the value is below the village target of $1 million an acre. More intense zoning and development beyond that contemplated within the RE zoning district would be appropriate along Lathrop Ave, which is a collector street, and would raise the estimated taxable value per acre. So while the existing home out there was kind of large lot single family valued at about $720,000, it being along a village collector, the village staff would be amenable to future zoning designations for those properties that would be slightly more intense. I don't think we'd go high density residential, but like a moderate density residential is appropriate along a village collector street. And so that would change kind of our fiscal note formula there. We just kind of assumed the lowest possible value to be conservative in this estimate. We haven't received a zoning map application for this. That's one of the conditions on the creation of the new lots. So we can get into that when we get into the rest of the conditions. which are, number one, the applicant shall protect the environmental corridor using one of the options described. There's a small portion of environmental corridor in the southern portion of the lot, so it's really, doesn't impact the lots that are being divided. It affects the remainder lot along the Sorensen Creek. Section 2, we require a development agreement for any public improvements that go in as a part of these lots. Section 3, or Condition 3, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the proposed zoning for the lots and adjacent lands. Lots 1, 2, and 3 no longer meet the 20-acre minimum lot area per the lot and building regulations because it's currently zoned general agriculture. So lot 1 would meet the RE estate residential lot standards considering the existing detached house on the property. Lots 2 and 3 qualify for either RE, RM, or RH districts depending on proposed building type. The applicant must submit and gain approval of a zoning map amendment application for those lots before the village clerk will sign the CSM. So we don't want to create lots that are below the average lot size without the applicant submitting that zoning map application.
Sam, can I just ask somewhat of a chicken and egg question here?
Sure.
So today, we're going to be asked to approve a lot split per CSM. And knowing that the split lots will not comply with our zoning laws. So it's okay to split the lots, approve a CSM that are in violation of the zoning? Or is it just sort of understood and
So you're approving it with the condition that they need that map amendment before the clerk will sign it, so they can't record the land division until that zoning map approval. So I'd say, well, you are blessing the lots in their current shape and saying these, you'll need to come into us and apply zoning to these newly created lots. They will not actually be created until that map application goes through. They basically have to, like the chicken and egg argument, have to go through together. It's an unknowable circle of which one is first because they're both basically have to go in at the same time. So because we only got one of the two, we're essentially saying this looks good in its current form from a land division perspective. It, but for the conditions meets all of the subdivision regs. We just need to match it with a zoning district. And if for whatever reason that there was an issue with those zoning maps, then this map wouldn't get signed and it would kind of die on the vine.
all right, thanks.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
to Sam, just as a follow-up to that, when you talk about them needing to bring in, the zoning map amendment, that, when you're saying that, what you mean is it needs to go through the public hearing and zoning process. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Yep.
And so typically, that chicken and the egg conversation is interesting, because typically the developer would like to know that what he wants to do is doable before he goes through the process of rezoning, because that becomes permanent.
Yeah, the issue with this one is we have now under our zoning code, we have maximum lot sizes. And so you couldn't like blanket zone the entire parcel into RL1 or RM1, for example, because it would be beyond the maximum lot size. So for that, it's basically the land division and the zoning have to go through together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sam, real quickly, how many acres is Lot 4? That's going to be the remnant.
Oh, that's a good question. I can pull it up. It's on the very right-hand side of page 2 of 6 of the CSM. It's 31.4 acres.
Okay. Because I see there's a road road reservation that they want to put in there as well to go over the creek.
Correct. That's part of the comp plan, and it's also the only way that you'd be able to access the rear portion of that lot without going through other people's lots. So they put it on there proactively, but if they hadn't, we would have required that they do so.
Okay.
Moving forward, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the minimum lot area required by the zoning district in which the land division is located. 5, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the 300 shoreline protection zone, the 150-foot principal building setback, and the 150-foot vegetative buffer from the ordinary high water mark of Lower Sorensen Creek. Per the zoning regs, the applicant may also choose to permanently protect these lands via outlot protection or dedication per condition number 1. So this is essentially saying along the Sorensen Creek, landowners have two options. A, they can put a protection easement over that with this land division, but that land, those future landowners would be taxed on that land as, natural open space, taxes for that chunk of property would be pretty low, but it would be privately owned. Or if they want to sell the lots free and clear of any of that like protected area, the village is willing to accept lands along the lower Sorensen Creek, and so they could just dedicate it to us as an outlot or an addition to some adjacent village property. So they have options either way. It doesn't matter to us. Both comply with the land division and subdivision regs. It's just which one they want to choose. Some people want to control that land, other people don't want to even have to think about it. So that's why we give them both options. Moving on, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the owners of record for abutting unplatted lands. Number 7, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show notations or restrictions required by the Plan Commission. That is mainly in regards to the protection of environmentally significant lands and the condition we just had before it. So those two conditions kind of go together. Number 8, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the boundaries of primary and secondary environmental corridors and the wetlands delineated on the property. And that is mainly the wetlands and the primary and secondary environmental corridor follow the lower Sorensen Creek. So what's shown on there is largely the same bounds, we just need separate lines. And then finally, number 9, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to provide a 50-foot non-access easement and planting area with the following restriction. This area is reserved for planting of trees and shrubs, blah, blah, blah. That is along the rail line to the east, which is actually a non-active rail line at this time, but is still owned by We Energies. So that was one of the old school, inner city electric rail lines. So
Maybe we'll bring it back.
I mean, that would be cool, but in a completely
Our own
different way. We'd be sad to see the bike trail go, but it would be cool to see some electric trains, as an urban planner. But those are the conditions. They're all pretty standard. It's really just in relation to that environmental corridor and then the zoning map application, as we talked about. Everything else looks good to go. We have Mark here who drafted the CSM if you have any questions. Other than that, we recommend approval.
I do have a question.
Let's start with
I'm
Ron
sorry, go
first.
ahead.
Well, Sam, I was reading that again, and we talked about that in the past with the 9 conditions, except for, yes, is it doable or not? Does the Planning Commission has any concern in the concept that it can be divided into 3 lots? Why not try to meet? Why not go through with the applicant saying these are the conditions? Show us that you're going to meet that, and then we bring to Planning Commission, because it looks to me that we are doing everything like twice.
For this one and the next one, there are more conditions than we normally bring on. And to Mark's credit, he's normally pretty good about getting those tracked. It was just we had some people out of the office at different times. And so it's, the holiday season and December. So Mark was out last week and wasn't able to make updates as quickly as he has in other months. So.
No, because it's not only this item, but there are a couple of other items also with 8, 9, but 10 condition, and I'm always kind of wondering why go through that kind of twice.
You guys always have the option to table if you'd like to see the maps cleaner and brought back to you if you want. So it's completely your call. We wouldn't bring them forward if we weren't comfortable handling the conditions at a staff level, or if we thought it was going to markedly change the layout of the lots as shown. All of these are just like cleanup items that I know will take Mark and Nielsen Madsen probably a couple days now that he's back in the office to get on a map and re-over to us. So if we thought this was going to look vastly different based on these conditions, we would either sort it beforehand or recommend that it bring it back. But I don't think that's the case here.
I mean, if the intent is, to go through that with the Planning Commission for the concept, we don't have any concern. But speaking of cleaning up the condition and the paperwork, why village under the fiscal note, the calculations are correct, but village property tax rate is still listed as 1 penny. That is, at least it should be, And then if I look at the next line, expected year 1 property tax to the village, that is the correct number based on the current mill rate. But I'm just saying is that
It's
these are
because
small
it's
things,
like
because as you said, kind of
0.006 of a cent, and so unless we take the decimals way back, it looks like a penny when we export the fiscal note.
okay. I'm glad you explained because
Yeah,
I was looking for it should be $6.26.
yeah, it's $6.26 per $1,000. So
Yeah,
if you
per
divide that by
1,000, so
1,000, it's
Yeah, but
penny.
Yeah, a penny,
You know, for the
essentially.
record, or
You
when
round
the-
up to a penny.
Public or the record, anybody say 0.01, that doesn't make any sense. What I'm saying is, you know, like you said,
We can extend those decimals out if you would help. I mean, the true mill rate is like 6,000.
it's not a
per
big deal,
dollar.
but kind of, I think, you know, to have the proper record. That's all.
Thank you, Ron, for reading to that level. I did not get that far, but that's good. You do. You're always bringing up these very important
These are the
details,
public records, you know, so you should have the right, you know, yeah.
right information. Yes, thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I want to emphasize and even amplify on Ram's general remarks. Over the last, I guess, couple of years, I keep seeing matters brought to this commission with a ton of conditions. Conditions that I think could have been met before bringing it to us, and I think even out of courtesy to this commission, they should be met before coming to us. There's 9 conditions here. I think certainly conditions 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 could have easily been shown on this map and should have been. Your comments talk about, well, proposed development. I don't know what the proposed development is per your write-up. I don't know what the zoning for these lots is going to be per your write-up. That should be hashed out and done before you come to us. And staff, again, I think you might be okay with it. I haven't dealt with these fellows. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with it. And it shouldn't, I don't think matters should not keep getting passes to be as complete as possible before they come to us, because staff is okay with it.
All right, we'll be meaner.
And the next one on the agenda's got 12 conditions.
Sure.
It's the same thing again, and it's not appropriate, and I'm going to vote no on this, not so much that I've,
Well, I would recommend,
this
instead of
project.
flat out denying it, I would recommend, because then there are times, I would recommend you table it to clean up the conditions. Unless there are the votes to approve it, honestly, it's your guys' call. Doesn't matter to me either way, but,
okay, that's a good point, tabling it versus,
yeah, because denial would be
Aye.
like, we're not okay with the map, as opposed to we want more stuff on it, so.
Also to kind of chime in a little bit here, that like because of the way the approval cycle is, this doesn't go in front of village board until January the 8th, which is quite a bit of time to address a lot of these that would be on there.
But
But
that's not-
the other thing is if an applicant really wants to put something in front of the board, we can kind of like gently suggest to push back as much as we want, but if they really want to, they have the right to be heard in front of the boards, and then you have a right to either table it or say no.
In my opinion, a lot of these conditions are just noting on the CSM some specific things. It's not conditions that have to be met as far as moving roads or, redoing things like that. It's just putting the identifications down on them. So I don't have a problem with that.
They aren't conditions that would alter the plat or the CSM or change the lot sizes. They're simply information.
And if they did, to be clear, we would bring it back to you. I think a good example of that is the Pike River Crossing plat, which went to the Plan Commission through the Village Board process 3 times, because as they were meeting some conditions, it changed the actual layout of the plat as they're working through final engineering docs and all that, and it got brought back to you multiple times. So, we, as staff, are just trying to balance, getting people through the process in a way with also getting as many conditions sorted beforehand. I think we made progress on that, and we can certainly be stricter in the future. But that'll just mean, as a consequence, pushing people to subsequent months if some of the conditions aren't met. And if we do that multiple times, we as staff start to get uncomfortable about tabling someone at a staff level in perpetuity. So there's no policy that we can create there, because it's truly a application by application basis. But just to explain, those are the things that we're trying to balance on the staff side. We don't want to be one of those communities that takes in an application and says it'll make it to an agenda in 6 months or something like that, and then dole out one update at a time, because there are those communities and they can get in trouble with state statute and stuff. So it's just a fine balance. But I take your point, Tom, and we certainly feel the same way, that sometimes a lot of these things could be a little bit cleaner. So we can push that.
Sam, isn't there also a shot clock on CSMs? So
There is, but the shot clock only relates to if we haven't given like actual comments back or not. So, you know, it's all a balance.
And it probably could have been one condition that all of these things were under. Denote this, denote this, denote this. as
Yeah,
one condition.
these executive summaries are very specific. So, you know, if we took out a lot of the stuff, we could certainly meet it better. But, you know, it's up to you guys. Honestly,
From my perspective, Sam, if these things are so easy to do, then yes, they're easy to do on the next revision. But just at the same time, if they're so easy to do them.
Well, I
And
think they were trying to be done, but as we said, there were schedule conflicts. Life gets in the way of our plans, and so to get everybody working together, sometimes these things happen.
This was drafted by Madsen Nielsen on November 2nd. So I don't know what their timing is, but they're,
yeah, we don't always get those. So it's like Mark might draft it, but then it goes to a client, and the client has to submit an application and gets filtered to us, and then we have to get it in our review schedule. So it takes a little bit longer than the actual date shown on the map when like Mark hit export to PDF.
Chairman?
Yes.
I'm going to try and move on from that subject if I can. Because, again, and part of the problem is I have worked with certified survey maps for the last 25 or 30 years. The conditions that have been attached to this, in my mind, are edits. They're not conditions that are going to alter the CSM in any way. It's just adding more information. But I do understand, and Tom has brought this up before, and I've agreed with him. We've had a couple of maps and submittals that were missing a lot of information, and that could have been detrimental to the site. And I think those are the ones that me personally would be most worried about. My question regarding this is Lot 4. And Lot 4 is what is taking in all of the area to the east of the Sorensen Creek. So if we were to take off the area east of the Sorensen Creek because the property owner asked the village to take it for parkland or environmental, whatever we want to categorize it, where would that boundary start? Would it be on the west side of the Sorensen Creek or the east side? First question. And second question would be then, if they do that, is Lot 4 buildable then? What would we have left for a remnant parcel? And
Be the east side, because we wouldn't take the entire 31 acres. That's not part of our Parks and Open Space plan. We would only take the lands, basically 300 foot with the high mark of the Sorensen Creek. So 300 to 350 feet surrounding the creek that the
so
village would
Lot
accept.
4 will always have then its
Developable area.
west of the creek, which is, I would assume, where they would want to build a house, as opposed to building a bridge over the creek.
Well, the only way to access the remainder land is to build a bridge over the creek.
Right. Mark, do you know, may I ask of Mark Madsen
Sure.
if he knows what Koo's thinking along that line? Is he thinking that Lot 4, that he'd build that and access that area to the east?
Yeah, the whole plan is to do any development on Lot 4. I believe there is some sort of a way to get across there now, like maybe with like a, like an ATV or a small vehicle like that, some kind of wooden bridge or something that's there that he can access that side, but he has no plans to develop it anytime soon, if at all.
It's a tricky spot. I mean, I think getting utilities there, like aside from road stuff, is going to require a lot more study. There are some easements that go all the way north to Chicory. So, I mean, if someone submits a plat to develop, because it's so much acreage, it would likely be a plat to develop that rear part. It's going to be a significant amount of engineering. You're dealing with the environmental to cross the creek, the floodplain stuff to cross the creek, utilities potentially from a different
would be
avenue to
huge.
get in the back.
Yeah.
So, it's
Well,
just like, frankly, normally we'd be a little bit like, maybe we want to see that road built on the west side or anything, but it's so expensive that unless the market goes insane or something else happens, I just can't see that anytime soon that property's going to develop.
Well, and I know he's using the existing building for his home use now. So I guess really the question I would have is, it seems most likely that if he were to sell Lot 4, for another purpose. It would be to someone who's building a home on the west side of the canal. In other words, they might use
There's,
it.
yeah, I mean, maybe, but we still need the 60-foot road, and then he's carving out these two other lots, so there's nowhere else to put a house on the west side.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The existing building would have to be torn down.
Sure, but then you would have to merge his existing lot into the back one or something. I mean, it's essentially this land division is treating lots 1 as existing, it's getting a little bit expanded, lots 2 and 3 are new, and lot 4 is a remainder that is gonna be, I don't know, maybe by the time I retire, it'll be worth it to develop.
Well, maybe I'm overthinking it. I understand the project and I understand what he's trying to do. My concern is just that if we create Lot 4, even though it's 31 acres, is there an area to the west of the Sorensen Creek that would be part of Lot 4, that if he built the road and he could get to that area, he could be able to develop that?
Not as it's currently shown, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Mark, would you like to come up and address the commission at all?
I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I just had a couple of questions of Sam. You kind of answered one of them, the 50-foot setback. I thought that was just for active railroad, or you're saying because that is still a We Energies property, that still will be, that has to be applied to that?
Yeah, if the county ever took that over as like permanent like thing, and like there was no option for it to go from trails to rails back again, then we would be amenable to removing that easement. But while there still is that option there, then it has to stay on. I double checked the property ownership. If it was owned by Racine County, like some of the other inter-county trails, then we wouldn't have included it on there.
And the other thing is that, and I'm not questioning, I understand it's the lower Sorensen Creek, but I was just trying to find through your website, I wasn't able to find where's the line of demarcation, because you have some other streams or waterways identified there as lower, I don't know if it's a lower Woods Creek or Pike Creek, I forget the name. But
Yeah.
where is that defined, or where is those lines of demarcation?
They should be named generally on some of the surface water data viewer maps, but if not, I can go draw some lines and I'll send them to you after the fact.
That was just more of a curiosity thing for me.
Yeah.
And a little bit of an apology for some of the, maybe the more mundane things that are on here. And I'm not trying to make excuses, I've been doing this in Mount Pleasant for probably close to 40 years. And you guys have made some substantial changes to your zoning, that's all well and good. No excuse that I shouldn't have learned that, but some of these things like that, the names of the adjoining landowners, I mean, I know that's in your ordinance now for CSM, but used to that for subdivisions. Just what every other community, you don't have to do that for a CSM, yeah.
It's an,
I'm not trying to plead ignorance, but it's just something that we have to be more conscious of with some of these small things that have to be updated on this map.
and I want to back that up. Our subdivision ordinances do require a lot more on a CSM than most communities do. And that's because we've been more progressive in implementing like the increased allowance for use of CSMs, particularly in multifamily, commercial, and industrial areas to divide more than 4 properties. So it used to be capped at 4 properties, so you didn't have as many requirements because you couldn't like plat 100 acres of land using a CSM, or if you did, it would be like very large chunks in 4 lots. But now that we've removed that cap, we do require a little bit more information for a CSM than most other communities. But most of the regs come from the sewer PAC recommended land division ordinances, which were updated in light of that state statute allowance. So we're just kind of following that logic down to us, and most communities haven't updated their land division regs since the 80s, so like they don't have the same requirements that we do. But if you can essentially plat an entire business park without having to use a subdivision, we're gonna require a lot of the same information that a subdivision plat would require.
Right?
Sam, 2 quick questions. I didn't pick up in your write-up, what will be the zoning applicable to Lot 4 after this CSM gets recorded?
It'll stay the same zoning, which is AG2, general ag. It still is above the 20-acre minimum to stay ag. And as far as I know, in talking to Co, he's just gonna continue to lease it to a farmer.
And then, is there any it seems as if we're, in this process of the CSM, we're creating Lot 4, which is going to be a lot, separate legal lot without any functional or apparent access to a road.
Well, it actually, the road reservation is part of Lot 4, so that is the legal frontage for it.
Okay, so the 66 road reservation is part of Lot 4.
Correct. It's not a full dedication of the right of way.
Okay, good.
But anyone buying Lot 4 will see it on the CSM and know, like, roads going there, and anyone who wanted to develop the lot would know that
I was
anyways.
just afraid we were creating a landlocked parcel. but
Yeah,
we're
no,
not.
we normally don't like road reservations for that exact reason, but this is one of the rare cases where it actually makes sense.
Thanks.
And if there's no further questions,
Chairman Davis, I'd like to make a motion to approve 4607 Lathrop Avenue Certified Survey Map, CSM 23-14, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff's executive summary.
Second?
motion and a second, any further discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll vote aye. Reluctant aye for the
Thank-
reasons I noted, so.
Thank you.
We still hear you, Tom.
Thank you. Yes, it's been understood. Thank you. Motion carries. Next will be Spring Street Certified Survey Map, CSM 23-15.
Here, the applicant applied to create 3 parcels along the East Frontage Road to sell separately. The application follows the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan. The bike plan does not contain any recommendations along the property, but the park and open space plan for the Village of Mount Pleasant does recommend protecting the environmental corridors contained within the subject property. As you'll see, those environmental corridors are largely contained within existing wetlands as well. So while we need the separate map, if you're ever wondering where are those environmental corridors, you can see them on the map currently in the green area, but if you look at the actual CSM, it's basically the wetlands are actually more extensive than the environmental corridors are. The applicant for this is Nielsen Madsen Barber on behalf of the landowners who are I-94 associates. John is here from Berkey to represent the landowners. Moving on, we'll skip ahead to the fiscal note here. Because this is contemplated within a commercial industrial area, what we did is back into some numbers. But this doesn't relate to any specific development proposal. That's a part of this map instrument. But the numbers above show target numbers for future development. The one issue, so that those targets end up being about somewhere in the $4 million an acre range. However, we want to make the note that, like the other project, but more extensive in this one, there are some really extensive environmental corridors and wetlands on these properties, which are completely undevelopable. So target values per acre are going to get a little bit wonky in this case along the frontage road. The conditions that the staff recommends for approval are as follows. First, the applicant shall protect the environmental corridors. Second, they'll need to enter into a development agreement for any public improvements required for the project. This currently does not have any sewer or water service to it, which we'll need to solve that issue with the development of these parcels. So they'll need to enter into a development agreement with the village to sort how the new lots will access utilities. Third, that is the development agreement as well. Number 4, they'll update the face of the CSM to show the proposed zoning. Some of the lots do not meet the 20-acre minimum lot area. They did submit a zoning map application for the entire property, so that is to C3. So they just need to update the map to show the proposed zoning as C3, which is high-intensity commercial. Number 5, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the minimum lot area requirements. 6, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show the unnamed river or stream, which is in the far northeast corner of the remnant land and the open space preservation site. That one might not actually be on the map. It's really close and hard to tell, so I'll leave that one to Mark to figure out as he looks at the survey, but it's pretty close to the boundary. Number 7, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show building or setback lines required by the Plan Commission. And those relate to further on, this is an access-controlled highway. Therefore, the first 50 feet of the property are undevelopable except for pedestrian ways, similar to along a railroad. So they'll need to denote that on the map. Number 8, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show owners of record for abutting unplatted lands. Number 9, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show any that's access control, sorry. Number 10, the applicant shall update it to show the existing sanitary, storm, sewer, culverts, drain pipes, all et cetera, for utilities. There is a pretty large district drain tile that runs across the property that Public Works called out that would want to see on the map, as well as we have to, if you're splitting property that does not have access to current utilities, they'll need to show where they can come from or denote that on the map, which is either 20 or Highway V along Spring Street, either way. The number 11, they'll show the boundaries of the primary and secondary environmental corridors. They already show the wetlands. Number 12, they'll show the existing, because this property is so far away from public sanitary sewer, they do have the option of using on-site private sanitary for the project. So they'll have to show the existing, update the face of the CSM to show the approximate location of any proposed private on-site wastewater treatment systems for it. This property kind of sits in a depression between Spring Street and 20. So any public sanitary sewer to serve the property, I've talked it over with Tony, the Public Works Director, would essentially, you'd have to build a lift station for like 2 lots, and it would cost more than it would be worth to run at that point. So that is why in this limited circumstance, Public Works has actually said we're okay with a private on-site wastewater treatment system. The applicant shall update the face of the CSM to plat the remnant land as a lot. There's really like, I don't know, 10 acres left on the CSM, something like that, 15 acres left. And because we don't have the 4-lot minimum or the 4-lot maximum anymore, they can just update that northern area to plat it as a lot instead of keeping it as unplatted lands. Number 14, the applicant shall update the face of the CSM to show that non-access easement area. Number 15, for lots 1 and 2, there is a lot that's being created that does not have public frontage. That is allowed if they provide a cross-access easement to that back lot. And we allow that because there are only 2 points of access along this entire part of the frontage road. So even if you created a 4th lot that had access or had public frontage along the frontage road, you'd still have to share access between those lots because DOT has restricted the access points there. So in this circumstance, we're okay with a lot that doesn't have public access, but they do need to show there is cross-access easement there, but we just need them to update the language for it as reading in condition 15. And then 16, they'll just need to show plans for any, survey monuments and streetlights and all those other things that they plan to install as a part of this project. So, again, I don't think any of these conditions should change the layout of the lots at all. It's a lot of stuff just to update the face of the CSM. And some of them are like partially shown, like the wetlands, but not the environmental corridor. So it's like the addition of lines that are essentially restricting it in the same way. With that, I can answer any questions. I know that was a lot for the subject property.
Who's got some questions?
Well, I guess my biggest question is, it looks like 2 of the lots are completely underwater. So I'm not sure what procedures we have to go through, they have to go through to make those buildable.
For lots 2 and 3, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's essentially that like carve out area on the south end of lot 2 and then directly east of that for lot 3. They would still have to comply with all the grading regs for those lots. So while those areas are naturally higher because obviously like the wetlands are forming in the depressed areas, but it's likely that someone coming in would have to do some additional grading for those lots.
Okay. Yeah. And then second question is, you talked about an on-site treatment plant. What's the exit point and where does that go?
It's essentially, it'll get privately picked up.
So it's not going to be a flow through, it's going to literally be a catch?
Correct, yeah. like mound system or tank.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
When you stated that Tony would allow that, I think that's interesting because of the type of use that is contemplated here. If it were a single-family home or a duplex, on-site sanitation makes sense. But if you have some sort of manufacturing, you know, what do we anticipate would go in here?
Likely
that-
more office or commercial. So the sanitary use would be not super high as opposed to some of the other ones. I mean, the highest could be like a hotel, and even then, they would need to just provide a private tank for pickup, which is pretty common in areas that aren't served by sanitary sewer. So
Oh, a holding tank. So it would be more of a holding tank situation in the case of a higher
yes,
density
like an
hotel
office
or-
building or something might be able to get away with more like on-site treatment, depending on the size of the field and everything, because people are only in there 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And there aren't typically showers or things like that. But if like a hotel were to go in there, they're probably looking at a holding tank. I mean, it's really lots 1, 2, and 3 that don't make sense. Lot 4 does, I believe, or what would be Lot 4, the unplatted lands to the north, I believe do have sewer coverage. So it's really these 3 lots. And then everything south of this has access to 20. So these 3 lots are in kind of a hole along the frontage road where it's, where do you put it? I mean, there are some options to like run it through private property through easements, but you'd be cutting through some major environmental corridors. And then we don't really like easement under protected areas, because then if you ever have to dig it up or fix it, you're tearing up the entire environmental area. So it's kind of like,
problematic.
pick
time.
which bad solution you want for them to deal with sewage on the site, and we think a holding tank or something similar is probably the simplest.
I mean, I think that it still raises an eyebrow for me, only because, depending on the use, they're gonna have to prove that sanitation.
Yeah, they'll have to go to the county and do
In
all
other
the
words,
typical
we're
permitting.
typically on a CSM, we would require the location of the mound system to be tested, would we not? If it
Yeah,
were,
and that
if
is
in
one
a
of the
typical how, if it's.
That is
typical-
one of the conditions on there, that they'll need to update the face of the CSM to show proposed locations for those on-site private detention facilities.
Have you had it tested at all, Mark? Has it been tested at, oh, excuse me, Mr.
Or,
I think, I think there's other people in the room that can answer that, Nancy. It's my understanding that one of these lots, there's a proposed development that's poised to move forward on one of them, so I don't know how they're addressing that issue. When we did some preliminary work on this for I-94 and Associates years ago, I think we thought that you could probably get by with extending the sewer from the south. It would have very minimal cover. Maybe Tony thinks otherwise, or maybe the developer has found otherwise, but we thought it was probably doable with minimum slopes and minimum cover. I don't know what I'm not part of the development team for that lot, so I really can't answer that question. If they decide to go with a holding tank, I don't know if we have to do the soil test, if they're gonna go with some sort of a mound system, definitely we have to.
Right.
So we're kind of coordinating some of these other requirements with that developer, some of the utilities that the CSM requirements dictate. Hopefully, we're gonna get some of that information from the development team for that lot, so we don't have to go over and replicate that information and duplicate costs for that. So there's some coordination that's happening between the CSM and the potential developer.
And we're really fine with any of the above options. I've talked it through with Tony, and if they can find a way to cover it with sewer, great. If they can't, the private on-site ones, Tony said this is a circumstance where, but they would need to go get approval for those individual permits if they are private systems.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question yet. On the summary sheet, your diagram shows it's going all the way to Highway C. Yet on the certified survey map, you have an unplatted lands that,
Yeah.
Lot 4. What are we doing here? Because is
That
that
is
all
where
owned by
I-
one person?
Yeah, it is all owned by one person. That's why I wanted to pick up condition number 13. The applicant shall update the face of the CSM to plat the remnant land as a lot per the ordinances.
Yeah, because you said that has access to some utilities, correct?
Yeah, they're not there now, but the coverage for sewer is easier from Spring Street that far west when we've looked into it.
That could come from the south. And I will let, again, I will let the, the owners or the representatives speak to that. It's my understanding that it is their intention for that, what we want to refer to as a remnant, is to be combined with land they own to the east of there. Whether that's allowable or not, I guess that's still to be.
Yeah, that would probably comply with our ordinances, but then we'd like to just see that shown.
Be sort of run, it's technically to be concurrently with the CSM.
Yeah, and all we'd need for that, because I believe it would comply with the existing zoning, all we'd need for that is a quick claim that remnant parcel to this. So if that's the case, then we just need that legal document showing it, and we'd be good either way.
Most of that remnant, probably the vast majority of it is either going to be wetlands or highway setbacks, so there's not much that can be, much of anything that can be developed there. So if they combine it with the land to the east, perhaps that helps with that development as green space or something else, I don't know, but.
Yeah, it could.
That's the thoughts on that.
That works for me. That would meet the condition as far as we're concerned.
Sam, just picking up on that point, it strikes me that this certified survey map proposal is fundamentally flawed by not having the unplatted lands platted and assigned a lot number. I don't know how you can split off 3 lots.
Well, you
from-
can because the statutes allow if the property's above a certain size, you don't have to plat the entire thing. And it's above 35 acres. So statutorily, it's legal what they have shown. We just don't think it's good practice. So whether that's a lot 4 or if it's merged with the other parcel, we don't care either way. It meets the zoning ordinances regardless. We just need to see which one they plan to do.
All right, so in that respect, what they've done then is legal because it's over 35 acres, the unplatted. Just, again, I'm just gonna make my general point that a CSM coming in here with 15 conditions is not acceptable to me. Again, I think as I look over these 15, several of those could have been dealt with, should have been dealt with.
I would assume we'll get them, by the time this reaches village board, the majority of these will be sorted.
When is this likely to go to the board?
January 8th. So because of the holidays, that's one of the reasons why we put these on there is because if we don't, they get pushed like a long time. And there's already this big gap because the village board doesn't meet it's literally Christmas this year, but they don't meet the.
So it's your expectation that the certified survey map proposal that the board will see in 3 weeks is going to be a different document from what we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it will be the same general lot layout. I think it'll just have a lot more lines on it.
I guess that's a question for Mark. Are you anticipating updating these CSMs we're looking at today in time to get them into our packets in January for the village board?
Yes,
Okay.
it's going to be tight on my end, as Sam mentioned, right? There's not a
Well, you've already been on vacation. You can go back to the office now next week, Mark.
the actual drafting, I just cracked it with Nancy. At least anymore. But, next week's gonna be a short week, and a lot of people are off the 2 holidays, but I anticipate that first week right after the new year, we'll get all the drafting done on both of these, and it shouldn't be an issue for that January 8th meeting.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I don't mean to give you a hard time. I know you're busy, and it's the holidays. Well, I know what it's like right now, trying to get a hold of people for the last, literally since Thanksgiving. People that have a lot of paid time off are gone, so it's been interesting.
Sam, I've got one other kind of a procedural question. Once, whatever gets to the board, if the board approves it, then at that point, the owner is invested with some rights to proceed with that certified survey map as approved by the board. What is your authority to the extent that you talk about, well, the clerk won't sign it unless condition A, B, and C are still done? Does the clerk have that authority to not sign a CSM?
If it's
that's been
included
approved by
as
the
a
board?
condition of approval by the board, yes.
Okay,
She
that's-
can hold off on signing it.
Typically, the clerk will go through those conditions and make sure they can find them on the documents.
Yeah.
Before they'll put pen to
Yeah, and the clerks are always good about running it by us as well to double check, because applicants will reach out to the clerk and be like, hey, can we come get this signed? And they'll say, hey, is this one good for signature? And so there's multiple points of like double and triple checking before we get it signed. And so it'll be,
But she has the statutory approval to.
Yeah, the
not sign
statutes
it.
basically say in summary that like there is a shot clock for approval on land divisions. Like someone can submit one and the village just can't sit on it in perpetuity. So we do have to act on it. But that's assuming that the application, that we receive it, provide comments for revision per local ordinance. So if we have those comments incorporated, then we can sit on it as long as it takes for them to get it updated. And honestly, it expires a year after. So if they sit on it too long, then it's just, they gotta go through the entire process again. But that rarely happens. Most of the time it's, these are a lot of conditions, 15, but normally if we have like 4 or 5, people will take care of it right away. And then, it'll be a month later.
So I know it can be done because you've got a couple coming up with have no conditions. I mean, it's great.
Well, the other ones are zoning, and we actually like have far fewer. The rest of the items on the agenda, we typically don't condition zoning approvals because that's really, what are you going to condition it on? Like it's either good or it's not. It's appropriate or it's not. Whereas in this case, it can be appropriate, but they need to update the map. So I'd say CSMs and plats you're going to see the most conditions on because there's the most. Like you can get the core of it right, but the details of it need updating as opposed to other ones where it's a little bit more black and white.
I think this is an interesting example of the enormity of who's looking at properties in Mount Pleasant, the value of frontage road to the owners, and to those that are looking at the community. This is a tough piece. And they're definitely working towards making, it as valuable as they possibly can. And,
Yeah, we don't want to, we treat everyone the same, full stop. But in this location, we did want to provide the applicant a little bit of grace, acknowledging that it's a tough site to develop.
very tough.
But for someone doing a lot of work on it, it's going to stay vacant. But it's a great piece of property from like a frontage and a view standpoint, so. Balancing those in this case, we're certainly willing to work with someone a little bit more than if it was just like a flat farm field with great drainage and direct access. So, yeah.
I would like to hear from the owner if I could, just to see what their thoughts are and what they're going to do here.
Bring it on.
All right.
Would the owner please come up?
Who's ever representative?
There's a representative. If we can get your name and address before you start.
Robert Hensel, H-E-N-Z-L, of Hostek, Hensel and Bickler Law Firm. We represent I-94 and Associates, a limited partnership which has been working on trying to come up with a development plan for this property for years and years and years. I know Mark has done a number of studies for them in order to try to figure out how you can use this property. And when we had the wetland delineations made earlier this year, we were frankly astounded at how much of that land really is wetlands. And so it's developable, and we have a developer, and the developer's ready set to go now that we are at this stage. There had to be site borings and lots of other things that were done in order to satisfy the developer. So we're in a situation where we're in a go position, except for having the certified survey map, and Mr. Borky is going to talk later about the zoning. So we're in that kind of position that was being discussed before, that we have the CSM first, the zoning afterwards. But it's all happening today with the hope that we'll be in position to go to the January 8th meeting and get final approval and get this project going.
Any questions, Tom?
No, that's fine. You said somebody else is going to talk yet, right? So the developer yet, you said?
Right.
For the zoning map.
For the zoning map, so I'll wait for that.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
zoning map will be addressed.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Sam, I have a question for you. again, with all the conditions, I totally respect that, you know, to move forward, all that information will be included by the time it come to the board on January 8th. So my question is, if you are not satisfied with all these conditions, or most of these conditions by January 8th, would you still plan to bring to the board agenda on 8th, or would that be held until the next meeting?
I have confidence that Mark can meet the vast majority of these. We do, I mean, I'd say 50% of our CSMs are with Nielsen Madsen. So I'm going to say that the vast majority of these conditions should be solved by then. If there is an issue, like in meeting these conditions, where it's going to require a complete redo, then it won't make it to the board. It'll probably come back to Plan Commission in a different form or something. But I have a lot of confidence that this will make it to the board on the 8th.
Yeah, because, again, as we talked about the previous item, we are approving it for the recommendation to the board under that assumption and the confidence, because essentially otherwise all we are looking at is that, okay, these are the 3 lots and we are looking at the boundaries and we don't have any more information, but to move it forward, so.
And I just want to, this is a public meeting. We're all saying the same thing out loud. So if anyone is trying to pull the rug out from anyone else,
No.
it's all on the record. I don't think
mean
that's going to
to
happen.
imply that, no, I've been on the planning commission for a long time to know that, no, we are not trying to pull the rug from underneath, but at some point in time, you need to see at least adequate information on the CSM, then trust me, it'll be it'll be done by that time.
Yep.
So with a little hesitancy, I'm going to be in the favor, but. I
No, we
want
hear
to
you guys
express my
loud and clear.
concern, you know, yeah.
Just one question for Sam. If, let's say they start out with deciding that running the sewer up from Highway 20 is not feasible, that would be traditionally or typically a financial decision. And if, let's assume they put in a holding tank or mound of some kind, we would want to make sure there's stipulations that in the event sanitary sewer becomes available, they need to disconnect their temporary service and connect to the main line.
Yeah, the ordinances already cover that. If you're within 350 feet of a sewer, you basically have to connect when it's available, per the zoning ordinances. So, this is because these lots are not within 350 feet of sanitary sewer. They are allowed to contemplate these issues. And also Tony, as Public Works Director, has approval on any land division. So this gets shared internally with them. They've provided the comments like they did on the drain tile, but any change in sewer access would also have to be reviewed by them as well.
Yeah, I hope that they can connect to a public system, because I think it sets a precedent. We have a lot of unusual properties that are difficult in the village. And it sets a precedent, and what happens over time is if that sanitary system that's not public fails, then it can be problematic, So we hope that you'll make every effort to connect to the public sewer that is available. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, based on the discussion and the confidence, I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Spring Street CSM-23-15, subject to the recommended conditions for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Further comments? Questions? Any further public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
At this point, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry I have to leave. I have another meeting I have to get to on behalf of the village. So you are under Robin's capable hands for the rest of the meeting, but I just wanted to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and
Merry
Happy New Year.
Christmas, Sam.
See you all in
Merry
January.
Christmas to you
Good
as
luck.
well.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, so, hi, I'm over here.
All right.
Don't stand so close to me. That's okay. But so, I will kind of guide us through the last two. So, the next one, I'm assuming.
Wait, Robin,
Is the
if-
chair called it?
If it's amenable to you, can I present on it? Just because I wrote it.
Oh, okay.
If it's all right with you.
Real informal here. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next on the agenda is South Green Bay Road zoning map amendment, ZMA 2310. Emily.
Yes, hello, welcome. I thought I'd give it another shot, give it a practice.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I present to you the following executive summary. Primestone Residential applied to amend the zoning map for approximately 34 acres between Old Green Bay Road and Royal Oaks Drive. The applicant wishes to construct a 213-unit moderate-density development with 77 detached houses and 135 twin houses. The applicant applied to amend the map from limited agriculture AG1 to moderate-density residential RM1. This map amendment and subsequent development would support the village's goals reported through its findings in the housing affordability analysis, including increasing supply to address the village's low vacancy rates and increasing housing options. This application relates only to the property zoning. Any future development on this property would require a land division application and site plan reviews. The village staff will also emphasize the importance of connecting the existing 3 stubbed roadways, 1 to the north and 2 to the east, to Old Green Bay Road and Brown Road, as shown in the conceptual site plan below. These conditions should provide better traffic circulation and public safety through connectivity throughout the neighborhood. So we as staff just wanted to additionally note that this map seen here is conceptual in nature only. The applicants do have to formally submit a site plan subject to approval thereon. In terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan, we find that the application does follow the residential areas, including churches, multifamily designation, from the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Racine County. The village does not have an adopted plan for local area 18, but the Village of Mount Pleasant master bicycle plan does identify an existing on-street bicycle pathway along Brown Road. A park and open space plan for the Village of Mount Pleasant 2050 identifies this property also lying within a priority protection area within the Pike River watershed plan. This designation encourages restored green spaces, ecologically friendly stormwater ponds, and other initiatives proactively to reduce pollutant loads in areas which drain to the Pike River. Now, to go through some of the provisions, this application is largely it really doesn't have any further conditions for approval, but just as a brief reminder, under 90-110-40, allowed building types, so the district does permit detached houses, 2-unit houses, twin houses per this application, or per subsequent applications, twin house buildings, townhouse buildings, multi-unit buildings, cottage courts, backyard cottages, and civic buildings by right. So no problem there in terms of the intended use of this property. In 90-110-90, detached houses and 2-unit houses, village staff will review in accordance any building permit applications for the allowed building types for compliance with this ordinance overall. And lastly, I just wanted to note in the fiscal impact, we do not have a formalized fiscal impact as of yet because the site plans have not been submitted for approval formally. So a formal fiscal analysis shall be completed upon the completion of applications for land division and a formally submitted site plan. Subsequent plans are fully required to capture the fiscal implications of the intent and purposes of this project as the document pertains to a zoning map amendment alone. In terms of conditions, I hope you all find this very amenable. There are no conditions subject to approval. So formally, staff does recommend the Plan Commission moves to approve Ordinance 27-2023, South Green Bay Road, Zoning Map Amendment, ZMA 23-10.
I am so sorry that I think we'll have to put one condition on there. So just looking at it, so the zoning is to RM1. RM1 has a maximum lot size, which is obviously over 36 acres. We just, as a matter of course, just like the reverse side of what we've been doing with the CSMs, we condition it on a lot division that meets with the RM1 zoning code.
So you would want that formally made a condition
Yes,
as part of the
please.
motion?
Yes.
Okay.
It is literally the opposite half of the condition we put on the CSMs from earlier. And this one is usually the order the preferred order because the rezone is obviously less intensive as far as civils go, and they want to have that in their pocket before they go and they do a really big subdivision plat. So it's not from a lack of preparation on the applicant, it's just the normal order.
Okay, noted.
My apologies on that. It somehow eluded both Sam and I.
Nope.
So thank you for pointing that out, though, Robin.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm here, you know?
Absolutely. Any further questions, comments, or concerns?
Tom?
Just one simple question. Can you just explain the differences between a two-unit house, a twin house buildings, and a townhouse buildings? What are they?
Dun,
My
dun,
goodness,
dun.
I do not think I could do it justice to the degree that Robin most likely could, as I am not the most knowledgeable about the discrepancies between the two. I know most of these are largely two-unit dwellings, though the difference between a twin house and a townhouse does escape me at the moment.
It's finals week, Emily. You're on the
It's
spot.
finals week, but listen, you can hit me up with any law-related questions, and I can most certainly handle those.
All right, so basically, a twin house is just two houses connected together. Usually, that distinguished between that and a duplex is that a twin home usually has a lot line in the middle of it, so each home is on its individual lot. A duplex is 2 units on 1 lot, and a townhome is multiple what we call attached single unit or multiple attached homes. So they're all single family homes, but they're attached together on the sides of it. Those can be either on 1 lot and divided, either rented or divided via a condo plat, or they could be on multiple lots and have each individual has a lot line through the walls. Am I missing any of them? This is those 3, right?
Yeah, so when obviously the plans for development come in, we'll see pictures of each one or
Yeah,
drawings
so
of each
far
one.
on this particular lot, it is small lot, single family, and townhomes. And the townhomes will be limited by the zoning to 6 connected townhomes together. And for comparison, Tivoli Green right over here, I think they're doing 8s,
Yes.
8s together. And the RM1 zoning limits a building type to be 6 units or under. And actually to do a comparison, across the street here is Taylor Harbor, and those are 8 units apiece buildings. Dan? Okay. It's good to have Dan there. See, he'll know. So these will be less big of buildings and stuff like that. So obviously the final design is, still going to be worked on, but it's going to be something like this. Also, the developer has indicated that they are in negotiations with the Serbian Orthodox Church about their extra land. So they have a tree line, you can kind of tell on the map, and they have about 6 or 7 acres outside of that tree line that they just rent to a farmer. And they're trying to figure out some sort of land lease situation where the church will still own the land under it. No other additional updates on that. So,
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Emily, you can proceed then. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh,
Any questions of Emily?
yeah. My part's done, as
Okay.
far as I'm concerned.
Not yet. We've got questions.
Do we have any representative from Primestone here who wishes to speak at this time, or? I wasn't certain if anyone had shown up to represent.
I don't think so.
Okay.
The main contact that I've had is based out of, down in Illinois, and called me this morning about that sort of stuff. But they will be here for the village board, and they will be trying to conduct a local neighborhood meeting. But details TBD.
They're going to try and do that before the public hearing?
Yes. Try is the operative word.
Yes.
Because I was like, it's
We should
a,
require it.
Can we,
Yeah.
could we
I
require
think
it
we
in
need to
this?
require it.
so we only basically require the public hearing that is going to happen no matter what, that's going to be here before the village board. Them doing a neighborhood meeting is something that, by our code, is kind of optional and a bonus on top.
But we couldn't put a condition on this as
I
one of
think the plan
conditions is?
commission can stipulate it, for sure. It
I
becomes a
think you ought to be
condition then.
careful putting conditions on zonings because that's somewhat illegal.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Putting
Frank?
conditions on zoning approvals is somewhat illegal unless you're like tying them, as was mentioned earlier, that they bring in a plat that matches the zoning. But just adding conditions to a zoning is iffy at best.
So,
Since they don't
mostly correct. Sometimes there's ones where they are, they will just not take unless a certain condition is met. But you're right in that it does get into territory. Is that a conditional use? What I would stress is we have a public hearing. It's here. It's at 6 o'clock on the January 8th. That's what the signs say. We've already mailed. We've already sent out mailings saying that's where the public hearing is going to be. We have, one of our requirements is that the developer gives us a neighborhood communication survey. So if they go above and beyond that they let us know what they did. And that is what this is being considered. I've even suggested that if they don't get that together, then they just show up early to the public hearing on the 8th and they take open questions before the village board gets underway. So it would be, I would not recommend like asking for a public hearing on top of the public hearing that's already statutorily required.
Okay, and that makes
A
sense.
public meeting
Yeah,
is
public
different than a
meeting.
public hearing, though.
Yes, but yeah,
But I was getting ahead of it. This is for zoning, this isn't site plan or whatever. So it's gonna be zoned housing, whether it's this or some other type of development.
yeah.
So if we're talking about zoning it to residential versus a specific zoning, I don't have a problem. The problem I have is, and I think those people, I think it's called Royal Oaks Drive, they're gonna have 2 for 1. Those are 100-foot lots that they're living on now. They're gonna have 2 homes for every one of their properties. And I think that we should hear from those folks as to what their thoughts are. And if they have not been notified yet, they should be, so that we're not going to push something through here that we're gonna regret that we've pushed these people, something against their will. And that whether we could have those lots at the lower end, on the east end of that property, larger and zoned differently, so it's not the whole parcel is a higher density, where at least the adjacent property owners are not looking at, again, 2 for 1. And on top of that, they're gonna be rentals. They're not gonna be owned by homeowners.
I
So,
agree completely.
So a couple of thoughts on that. So with the RM1, one of the kind of things about it is it does accommodate a different array of housing types. It does do like townhomes and small lot, single family and duplexes and all that sort of. That's basically the point of it. The other thing is we have sent out mailers already. I have been contacted personally by multiple neighbors in this area. The primary concern seems to be mostly like traffic. And most of those concerns have been alleviated by us saying that they're getting out of all of the areas that all those streets are going to be connected through. So anybody going different directions will exit a different way, and it doesn't all go out on the one way. There were a couple people that were just disappointed that they're not going to have 30 acres of farmland as their backyard that the owner let them use. And I was like, well, that's tough cookies. Be really thankful that you had such a generous landowner behind you to provide you with that. But market conditions and stuff, the houses that are on Royal Oaks Drive, they can't be built. They wouldn't pencil. So they're too big. So when you kind of realize that those lots are too big for a developer to feasibly come in and do them, well, what size is going to pop up? And the way that this is kind of arranged so that the single family homes are kind of like on the periphery, like bordering the existing homes, and the townhomes are more towards the interior. That's about as gradual as a sort of shift as you could get. And again, that is subject to change. And also, each of these, like, they will be rentals, but each of these units will be valued at as much or more than the surrounding homes that are existing there already. I had several people ask about, are these going to be, you know, X income or whatever, and it's like, have you seen housing prices lately? So those are all like standard concerns, but nothing really like militant compared to what I've seen in the past. So I understand all of those concerns. As far as the rental aspect, one of the kind of reasons why we've made them do the separate lots is that it will be much easier to kind of shift those into an owner occupied, you know, if they want to unload it and just sell it off to like an owner, that's a lot easier to do that than if it was all on one parcel. So.
Because it looks like there's all private roads too, other than the access roads, correct?
So the main ones that are sort of colored in gray, those are public roads.
Right.
And the kind of, depending on how the church is going to go, would be another public access road. And we're kind of talking about that private road that's on the east of the property, because that's quite a long one to be public road. And, you know, what that would entail, they would have to do their own plowing, all that sort of stuff. And
You just said public road. You mean private road, you mean?
Private road, yes.
Thank you.
On the right. So we're kind of in discussion with that. I've kind of recommended that they might look into like public alleys to kind of shrink the main roads a little bit and to kind of have all of the cars and whatnot go out the back to the alleys. That's just more space efficient.
Yeah, because obviously, this year is not indicative with the snowfall, but where are they gonna put the snow coming off those private roads?
Yeah, that's a concern if they want to shrink them up. That's one of those things that is a concern. I would say that the way they have it now is that the main roads are pretty wide, especially if you're going to be having that many curb cuts and driveways going out to it. So you wouldn't be able to use that extra area for parking because you have all the curb cuts coming out to it. So it's going to be fairly wide roads.
And it's only a conceptual plan at this point. So it could change significantly except for the reconnection to the stub streets.
Yeah, the stubs is pretty much, we've insisted on that from the get-go. The RM1 will kind of limit it to, you know, this type and scale of development. So even if they went multifamily or anything like that, they wouldn't be able to build a unit over 6 units. I haven't seen anybody come in with 6s and 4s in a long time. I would love for 4s to show up again, you know, because those are really popular with our older folks with 4-unit condos, but they're just not making them.
Yeah, what is the maximum lot width on an RM1?
I think it's max is like 80. All right, let me check.
That's what I'm asking, because if we zone it RM1, then we're getting them, we can't make them use lots wider. That's my concern.
Pulling that up. I think it's between 35 and 80, but I will check.
Well, it's at a depth of what, 120 these are called, I think?
Yeah, 100 to 120.
So if it-
Some of the townhomes might be actually a bit shallower because they'll have like rear entry garages. So that kind of allows them to be a little bit shorter. But let me.
Like I said, I'm more concerned about those about 15 or 17 lots that are running along the east side on the private, that are adjacent to the backyards on Royal Oaks. And if we put ourselves in an RM1 situation, that may be 60 feet maximum, those are 120 feet deep. That's because it goes by square footage, correct?
Yeah, so the minimum lot width for an RM is 35 for a single family home, and the maximum lot width is 60. So our 60 was a pretty common lot size before our zoning code change. So if they're coming in at 55, I think they're coming in at like 55, 60, somewhere around there for those, then that would be they would look pretty normal as far as like some of the older housing stock, and not necessarily the ones on Rural Oaks, which were, I think, built in the early 2000s. I'm good. I'm on fire today. Early 2000s had big houses.
That's my concern, is because if we go to an RM1, then we've given them by right that we won't allow them to build more than 60 feet wide. And
Well-
I don't like that without having feedback from the local neighbors to say, and if I was living there, I'd have some concerns that you're putting 2 homes for every one of my house back there. I'm looking at 2 houses now versus something more realistic, maybe 75 feet or 80 feet, something like that, but not 60, that's all.
I agree completely. Number one, I'm disappointed that Primestone is not here. This is a big deal. It may not seem like it to you, but it is a big deal. This property has been looked at. Every developer in southeast Wisconsin has tried to buy this property over the years. And the bottom line is that the woman that owned it was out of state. I believe she still is. And she wanted a tremendous amount of money for it. And the market finally got her that. But I'm very disappointed that they're not here, number one. Number two, this is not a multifamily area. This is surrounded by Regency Hills subdivision and all single family.
This is not a multifamily development proposal.
It's not?
No. It's single family and then townhouses
Single
on
family
separate lots.
attached. It's single family attached.
Yeah.
And it's that density. It's that density then. Excuse me, let me change the way I explain my feelings on it.
Yeah.
I totally agree with the concerns about the surrounding neighbors. Many of them are actually gonna be happy that they now can get out of their subdivision by cutting through this. That's always been a problem. They've had to go up through Regency Hills and, it's a long way to get out. So I think a lot of them are gonna be, actually happy. I'm just concerned about, I think this project also has still some hair on it, and I think that for us to be making a zoning now I'm going back to Mr. Van Beckham's, Commissioner Van Beckham's comment about the chicken or the egg. We're about to make a zoning recommendation based on a site plan that none of us like. Most of us are like, well, wait a minute, if I'm gonna zone it to that, I wanna see what it's really gonna look like.
Okay, so
And that to me is a bigger decision.
I'm going to tell you what I've told several of the property owners that called in about this. If they are concerned about density, given the current market, this is the best that they're going to get. Because I have been here for a while. The proposals I have seen that had lots that were bigger than this all couldn't pencil. They just didn't work, and it went through. And then there were 2 other proposals, sort of drafts on paper that were much more dense than this. We're talking like
Or this property you're talking about,
or this
Robin?
property.
Okay.
We're talking like the Seasons across the street, like RM2 apartment buildings. So as far as are they going to be unhappy? Yeah, because right now they have 30 acres of farmland. Is there anything that would change them being unhappy about not having 30 acres of farmland behind them? No.
Well-
But this is probably like this level of density. I'm not saying this site plan is perfect or anything like that. I still have quibbles with it, but that level of density is the best case scenario, given the price points that the developer is aiming for, that we can't get $600,000, like a new subdivision with $600,000 plus homes. It's just not something that's come in front of us.
But it's not our responsibility to make sure this landowner gets her sales price.
It is our responsibility to make sure that we build more homes in Mount Pleasant. So,
It doesn't come at any cost,
It's just, I don't,
You're right,
like,
Tom.
the properties across the street from this, the Taylor Harbor is more dense than this. Across the street, over on Broad Road, the Seasons is more dense than this. Pike River Crossing, a little bit down the street, and across on KR is gonna be more dense than this. And you're not going to get 100-foot lots anymore. So I'm not trying to be too combative, but when I kind of told some of these property owners that, you know, the market is only going to give them so many different options right now, most of them seem to understand that aspect of it. And if the public hearing aspect, I understand. If you want to hear for things from people, they were intending on coming to the public hearing. That was going to be on the 8th.
So we have to get it at the board level as opposed to letting some of that be heard, you know. I mean, it's the holidays, people are gonna get this mail, I don't know, I'm not trying to do anything other than make sure our responsibility is to our residents, it is to create and generate, you know, reasonable housing for the community, knowing what the costs are today in creating those subdivisions, but I think that because of this being in a very, very, very dense area that has a lot of housing around it, I'm concerned about moving this quickly because of the holidays, going right into a public hearing after New Year's, and not having an opportunity to talk to the developer and give them some of our concerns. So as they model their site plan, they can, not that you're not going to tell them what we're speaking to right now, Robin, but I think we have a lot of concerns with it, and to just unilaterally zone it, then by right, they have a lot they can do. And there's only so much that we can comment on.
So if the problem is with 55-foot lots, that is available in our RL1 district. So RL1 would allow them to do 55-foot lots. RL1 would allow them to do 55-foot duplexes. So you could get pretty high in RL1, even, so it's not necessarily RM1. It makes like a huge difference. RM1 only opens up the possibility of attached townhomes.
Attached townhomes, yeah.
So, but it prevents the possibility of 8 to 20 unit apartments. Where, you know, the other thing about this is because of those requirements for the roads, and some of the road attachments don't get homes on those frontages. So the one going out to Brown Road, there won't be any homes on that connection. And, you know, some of the area of the one going out to Old Green Bay, there won't be homes on that connection either. So that's an added cost, especially if that's a lot of public road for a development. So, you know, without the additional density in homes, I mean, without, you know, but the other thing is, currently this developer has not talked to us about incentives. This is the first housing development that has not broached the subject of TIF to this point. I'm actually super surprised, given how the other ones have gone. So that's kind of that's another thing to kind of lay out there, is that I've actually been discussing that it would be very difficult to get TIF for the site based on the residential around it. You would have to gerrymander something or whatnot. But yeah, because of those constraints, you gotta have to put X. It's a math problem. You have to put X number of units on there.
And I don't think that we're necessarily objecting to the number of units, it's how they're placed is gonna be very important.
I don't necessarily
In terms of protecting those existing people, even though you can't build a 100-foot lot today.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't particularly like the layout either, and I want to work on work with the developer on that. But I think the single-family lots are not going to be as small as we're thinking that they're going to look. It's more that the Royal Oaks ones are pretty large, like comparatively to most things.
well, they are. They're much larger than, you know, they were built and approved during the day when that was the thing.
Yeah.
So what are we as a plan commission, if we approve this zoning, what are we as a plan commission gonna see from this developer then? Will we get to see the site plan?
Absolutely. So the next steps from them would be a subdivision plat, because there's no way they can get out of a subdivision plat even if it's rental or anything like that, because of the separated lots and the roads dividing it, so you would have to create more than 4 lots. So, and we've been kind of nudging them along to make each unit an individual lot for reasons that makes it easier to convert into owner occupied later on down the line. So that would be the next step, would be site plan subdivision plat.
Do we know if they intend on being the management company for this?
Yes. Right now, they're also talking about, like, on the north part, there's like a clubhouse, and we're kind of nudging them around, like, the clubhouse with the parking lot. That's a lot of expense that they probably don't need to take, because there will be available street parking, and I don't really understand the whole clubhouse thing, but somebody in real estate's gonna have to talk to me about it, but like, it always confuses me that that's the thing that you would spend money on, because if I moved to someplace, I would pick up my mail there maybe, like, that's it. So, there's definitely some efficiencies that can be gleaned to make this better. And then also you have the potential addition of the 6 acres, which, if that does work out, that would change a lot of the economics and allow it to spread out a little bit more, because you wouldn't need to build extra infrastructure to utilize that 6 acres, but it would be able to accommodate extra units. For the most part.
But that wouldn't preclude them from doing just this and lining up 2 to 1 along Royal Oaks.
I mean,
With that
no,
added
that
over
would,
there,
but
that doesn't change this.
neither would RL1.
Right.
So yeah.
That's
And
a
we
very good
kind of recommended, like, Sam and I kind of did some of the math, and we sort of said that the average new unit that we needed to get into the village probably needed to be like an R60 lot. That if we did R100s, like we were going before we revamped the zoning code, we run out of room before we even met demand. So as long as we're hitting kind of like an R60 lot, the price of like the amount of tax money that we get sort of accommodates the public roads that we have to maintain here. And I do have an estimate of the value here. I got one from Dan, because it was 200, and we kind of said like 225 to 250 a unit. So it was like $40 million. 1 second, I need a calculator because I did not major in math. Yeah, 46 million. So, I mean, that taxable money would be enough to kind of, it would be, I think it was like, so divided by 36. Quite a bit of, like, above 1.2 million an acre. So,
Okay.
Well, I wish they were here.
yeah, I talked with them a little bit over on the phone. It's been basically, one has been working with me, he's been out of state, and then the other one is like the design firm and whatnot. So I think they were under the impression that they absolutely had to attend the village board meeting.
Well, they gotta get to the village board meeting.
Through us.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, that would be, they would get to the village board meeting regardless, but the auspices and the portents would be different, depending, but.
All right, well, I don't have any more questions.
I'd like to make a motion and then maybe comment after the motion.
Okay.
Okay. I move that the planning commission moves to approve ordinance 27-2023 South Greenway Road zoning map amendment ZMA-23-10 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion a second. Further discussion.
No, I don't have discussion, I have a comment, and all the comment made by Joe and Nancy are excellent comment. But I'm not concerned at this point in time, because normal process is obviously there's a public hearing, and for the public hearing, they probably have posted the sign and advise the neighbor within 300 yards or
Yep.
whatever it is limit. So I'm not concerned about that. the typical process is, and I do go back to 5 years ago when we had this Tivoli Garden, the same thing, the rentals are big, and this room was full of people, the neighbors who are objecting with all the reasons, and then, so my concern is that was that. These days, unfortunately, this is not the scope of the planning commission, but at the village board, the process is now, it would be on the agenda for the public hearing, and next thing is approve the zoning map. And that, I think, is my concern. So, but we'll deal with that, because depending upon the response from the neighbors and the community, I don't mind, at that time, if there's any concern that we have to alleviate their concern, to table it, not to approve that, because again, if you go back, we probably had like 2 weeks, maybe a month before we could bring back the owner, the builder, and ask them to address the concerns of the neighbors. So that's the way that's why I made the motion. Let's proceed with that. We will have the public hearing, and hopefully it's not immediately after the agenda to vote on the zoning, but if it is, and depending upon what the public brings it back, probably, you table it and bring back the owner and kind of, because the process should go through that. You hear from the public and then you hear from the owner, okay, how are we going to alleviate the concern? That's not, again, the scope of the planning commission. That's where my concern lately has been, that we have a public hearing and that we have a vote.
That's a really good point, Ram. We had been kind of talking about the public. We used to have the public hearing on a totally separate night.
It's separate, yeah.
And we wanted to limit the amount of nights that staff had to come out, that you guys had to come out. And while some people did not like the speed of the public hearing than it being on the agenda, some people appreciated that they didn't have to come out for 2 nights. And they got to see basically a consequential vote, up or down, or a table on the matter, right, like when they came out here. So,
yeah.
And that's a good, kind of a strategy there. If, we get to January 8th and, people come out and they have some minor concerns, but nothing too big, then you probably would be comfortable with it.
Yeah, and if the concerns are major concerns that we need to address, so we can always table it and kind of bring it back. Yeah, but if no one shows up, then obviously you don't have any reason not to hold the vote. But again, like the speed has, over the last 5 years that I've been, it's changed now.
Yeah.
It's a bang, 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 and
It makes it seem like it's being forced a little bit,
yeah,
but.
so.
How is
anyway,
Primestone notified that this passed or failed the plan commission?
Oh, so I mean, I told them that there would be, it would be on video, and then I would be contacting them with how it goes at Plan Commission today.
So you would tell them what you've heard here, the concerns, especially we've got 2 trustees that are gonna be at the very next meeting looking at it again, and the concerns are the same.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And, there's a lot of different strategies I could see that would address that. Especially since, like, the amount of area that they actually kind of touch the existing homes is pretty limited. So you could definitely do something on the areas that are immediately adjacent to the homes, and then on the other side of that street, tighten that up a little bit or whatever, so.
Yeah, the design's gonna make a big difference.
Well, again,
the
my comment still goes back to, I have no problem with the whole west end of this whole property. I have absolutely nothing wrong with this. My question is in regards to those adjacent properties on Royal Oaks Road Drive. And if we approve this RM1, we're locked. You cannot go bigger than 60 feet. So that's why my concern is here, is that no matter what you do, the board would have to then scrap the whole thing and go back. And I don't see that happening. And again, we used to have the public hearing before we even had the plan commission meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So we literally had those replies before we even talked like this. And again, I'm very disappointed because the developer's not here to adjust this, or at least comment to this fact that you could go from 15 homes there down to 10 or 11, something like that. And that would alleviate the problem. But by zoning, we won't allow it to happen. That's where the problem comes in.
Right, we can't
We
conditionally zone
we
it.
cannot condition we can't condition those lots to make them bigger once you make the zoning.
But I think Robin's point that he made is under the RL1, which would be the next zoning category to consider. I mean, in other words, I think what you're looking at, Jay, Joe, is kind of like you want to have two different zoning categories within the project. That would be your favored
Exactly.
presentation to this, as opposed to a blanket RM1. You'd rather set it up so that you have a site plan against those existing homes that you like with a zoning that matches that. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yep, exactly. So you can have a split zoning of this parcel or this development, if that's possible.
So one of the kind of I guess the features of what we were trying to go for by allowing different types of housing in each different zoning is to kind of get a variety of housing, per block and inter of the block. Because a lot of success, like a lot of other neighborhoods, they're not just like the same house over and over and over again. In the suburbs, you get a lot of that. And we're noticing that that is not meeting the demand of what people want. People want some smaller houses. People want some, houses that have flexibility and whether they, have a boomerang college kid or, live at home parent or something like that, we just want to create neighborhoods where every stage of family at every stage of life could still live and not have to move out. So that's one of those things about allowing for different types of housing in a particular area. If anything, I was commenting that I would like this to be mixed up a little bit more and not just all townhomes here and all single-family homes here. Well, they're both single-family, but you know what I mean. Detached homes and attached homes. But that was, an architect.
That was,
No, the architect drew that. That's,
Well, I think that we all have valid points.
Sure.
And I think that, so I think this makes it, without them being able to answer questions themselves, except through you, not that you've worked a lot on this parcel, it sounds like, in
Yes.
terms of other interest and so forth.
Yeah, and I've kind of gone back and forth on it, on some of the site plans, the layout. Again, I'm very, very shocked that there has been no ask for financial assistance. At this point, given how much money we have given to other developers for other projects, the fact that we're getting one that's not asking for them, I think we should look at as a huge win.
But
They could
we're
ask
not
for it.
done yet, yeah.
Yeah, they certainly could, but I can't remember a stage that's gotten along this far without that being brought up, because they kind of want to open those channels as soon as possible. But you're right. I just also think that it would be very difficult to accommodate that.
Right, well, exactly.
I can forward some things to, like, I've gotten about 4 different calls. I haven't really gotten any emails, but I can certainly get developer comments on this hearing and then forward everybody those comments, talking about their plan and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't be able to say for sure, like, if decreasing the density would sink the project. My gut says yes, because that's what's happened before, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, the decreasing of the property, you're talking about, maybe 5 homes are gonna be missing on that eastern end. And with a larger lot, they can build bigger homes, which will rent for more.
Not
And-
necessarily.
And, excuse me.
Sorry.
And, I've got my opinion on this. I can, bring a family of 3, 4, or 5 people into a larger home that you can bring into that property. So there are people that will rent larger homes because they want it, or they want a bigger parcel because they want to be able to run their dog out and back or whatever. So again, 60-foot lots, this is going back to West Racine again. And to put that against country homes that I granted, they're probably 100-footers, it's probably exactly what those are. But you're putting 2 to 1, and I'm gonna vote no. Everybody else can do what they want, but I just think that we need to do something to protect those landowners to the east.
So our choices, Chairman Davis, our driver, our choices are, we have a motion on the floor to approve it. We have comments that, we have questions, we want to meet the developer, don't like some things about it. So our choices are to either approve, move forward with the motion to approve, which we don't want to come up with a denial. That's really not the point.
I would
think
think-
the point is, we want some time to work with the developer. And so I think that the more reasonable approach would be to withdraw the motion to approve and make a motion to lay it over. And that way, I think we all would be more satisfied, and I think it's just unfair over the holidays to throw this public hearing at the public. People are out of town, they're not checking their mail's full of other stuff. I think this is a very important site in the community, it's in the heart of the village. And this is all the area that we've campaigned through, we know how these people feel, and I think we owe it to them to give it a little more time.
That's a side discussion I was having with Commissioner Joe Meyer, that maybe we should amend the motion. You cannot withdraw the motion because motion is on the table, but we can always amend it.
Well,
We can withdraw.
Or you could table the motion.
No, but the motion is to approve.
Motion
so-
to approve, but you could move to table the motion.
and that
Which
table
mean,
would mean it
okay.
would go into.
It means it sits on the table
Which-
until it comes back.
Essentially is the
So there's-
amendment, but in a different way that,
Yeah.
okay, you're not going to vote it. Again, I wish we had the legal,
Why can it not be withdrawn? We haven't voted on
You
it.
can you can move to withdraw the motion.
Withdraw your motion,
Yeah.
withdraw the second.
I don't mind to
I think that's the
withdraw it,
preferred way.
but I'm
Just because if we leave it,
I'm
if we
questioning the
table.
legality or I'm questioning because if Chris was here, he probably would say, no. The motion is out there, you have to vote, but you can always amend it. Can I withdraw it? I don't know. But
right,
if
well,
I
if you-
can, I would like to do that.
You could,
You can.
Okay, then,
Robin?
Well, so,
Could we-
I think, I mean, yeah, you could always, you could withdraw a motion once it's been made, and also the seconded, you could withdraw that as well. I just don't understand, I'm not sure how much better the result of that's gonna get, especially when we have like a hypothetical, concerned crowd.
I don't think it's hypothetical at all, and I think,
Robin, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but if we withdraw the motion, can we still have public hearing or
Well, if you table it, if you table the whole thing and it doesn't get a recommendation from you, I don't know. I suppose it would automatically go to the village board, because that's what always happens. It would go to the village board even if you denied it. And we've already scheduled the public hearing. We've already sent out mailers. We've already spent the money. People have already gotten the stuff in their mail. They've already put up the signs. So there's going to be a public hearing on January the 8th. So you'll
and
get
that's
the
fine.
information
That's wonderful. Then
I'd
that
like to
gives
see the
us an
public hearing, yeah.
opportunity at January Plan Commission to take into account the comments from the public. And at that point, we would be
Is what I
we would
asked.
be,
if we can have the public hearing as planned,
Yeah.
then I think it makes sense to either withdraw or amend whatever, you want to use it.
It just won't go to the village board after the public hearing.
right.
It won't be on their agenda.
I am not sure.
But that I'm not concerned, Mr. Chairman, because even if it's, you can always say, at the village board, if it's on the agenda, before we make the motion, we can always say, we table it.
If the Plan Commission tabled it, then it won't be on the village board agenda for action because
No.
there's no recommendation to the board.
Right. But
So-
if the plan commission denies it, it still can be on the village board.
Well, then it would be, if it were denied. And the vote on the village board would be to back up the plan commission's recommendation of denial. So my recommendation would be not to punish this developer or Robin and our staff for all the time they've put into it, but we're gonna have the public hearing. So my recommendation, what I would completely support, is withdrawing the motion that was made, and making, and then removing, to table the item until after the public hearing, until January's meeting, and having the developer present, and let's see at that point if they're willing to look at some kind of a mixed zoning. Or find out what our options are and what the neighbors have said. That, to me, is the most palatable in looking out for the property, looking out for the property owners, and looking out for the developer. I just think that is a reasonable timeline and would give us an opportunity to feel more comfortable making a motion. Because none of us, or at least I don't feel comfortable approving the RM1.
I am.
Yeah, I am too.
At least two of us are prepared to vote aye on the motion to approve. I find myself in line with Robin. It's teed up for the January board hearing. I think tabling it strikes me as muddied. I don't know that any of us are sure what the effect of tabling would be. If we have a motion to approve, if it's not approved, it's denied, it goes to the board. If we approve it, it goes to the board either way. Tabling it just seems to me to delay and muddy the situation. I think if it's teed up to the board.
Either way.
Either way, it should be approved or denied, it goes to the board. And then the public can show up. I mean, the public gets a chance to come in on site approval and everything else, or site plans and design plans, but
Yeah, and the other kind of thing is like the old zoning, so the neighborhood of the north, like, their old zoning was R75, so those are all 75-foot lots. And it's master plan for residential, so we want residential to go here, and RL1 is the only residential sort of allowance that we can kind of put there, and that would still allow for 55-foot lots. It would allow for them to go higher if they so chose, but we couldn't necessarily deny them based on, you know, okay, well, it's this size versus that size, unless there's specific criteria to do that.
I guess it's just a matter of scrutinizing the site plan then.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and like that's what I've been trying to do from the jump. I mean, I have actually been saying that we definitely need townhomes, like really badly. Tivoli Green has been saying that the interest in these townhomes that they're building here is off the charts, and it's just a different, like the large lot single family. We have a lot of that here. What we don't have is new small lot single family. We don't have that, even for rental, really. The cottages at the Leo Living Cottages was going to be basically the first opportunity we had at that, and that's been, as you'll hear later, that's been delayed. So,
See, that's what
Why?
so, okay.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think we beat this up a little bit too much, maybe.
All right?
Well, I'm sorry.
no,
but
me a
when-
couple as well. Like,
You know, and I, as a person who is a developer, if I had an item before Plan Commission that was as big as this, and I didn't show up, I'd get fired.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me is, I'm not as upset about the RM1 versus the whatever. We can work it out through the site plan. I feel that it's important for our staff to recommend to these applicants that they be here. It's important. All our questions could have been resolved. We could be making a vote on this in a much more confident manner, I think, if they were here and they could assure us that, yes, we will protect the neighbors to the east. Yes, we will, you know, we have nothing from them in that regard. And we're gonna give them RM1 zoning. So that's a big commitment. Sorry, I just, you know, I'm not trying to be a bad guy. I'm just trying to,
yeah, I understand all of that.
at this point, I would really defer to our chairman to decide. He either wants to, you know, Davis, if you want to proceed with a motion to recommend or a motion to table, but I think at this point, use your common sense and make a motion
Yeah,
one way or the other, and we'll vote on it.
That's was going to be my recommendation. We're going to move ahead with the motion in a second. Either way, it's going to go to the board. So we do have a motion in a second. Do we have any further comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Opposed? No.
So we have
Aye.
aye, no, aye, no, aye. Motion
said-
carries.
I was an aye. I was an aye.
Okay.
Yep,
Four
clarify, I
to
was
two,
an
motion
aye.
carries.
The only reason being.
All right, thank you,
the
everyone. That
issue
was
is
a
zoning.
tough one.
The
That's
issue
not-
is zoning,
yeah.
not the site
We'll have
plan.
to watch it at the village board
not-
on the
it's not
January.
Very
board.
much with a,
I will get you contact with the developer as soon as humanly possible. And I don't know, I thought that basically the engineer architect was going to be here, so I'm not sure what happened. So I'm gonna get that cleared up for
Yeah,
you
that
guys.
was-
And I agree with that entirely. I was very surprised in not a good way, but, we'll work that out and we'll make sure that those lines of
we have some
communication
very
open.
generous plan commissioners here that agreed to move it forward, because truly, but the item on the table was the zoning, not the site plan, but,
Right.
so. All right,
Correct.
thank you, I'm sorry.
Thank you all. All right, next on the agenda then will be 3909 Northwestern Avenue zoning map amendment, ZMA 2311.
Okay, this is me, unless you want to go again, Emily.
I
Okay. Yeah. By the way, thanks you guys. I missed that. We've been so kumbaya on things for so long that I might have gotten rusty. I'm good. It's good to be back in the game. That's a joke. Okay, so this is James Spodek requested to amend the zoning map for 5 parcels between Hanlon Drive and County Trunk Highway MM along Northwestern Avenue. That's Wisconsin 38. The applicant plans to fix up and lease the buildings to tenants. In the long run, the applicant wishes to redevelop the properties. Village staff believe the C2 district properly balances the property's location along Wisconsin 38 with the adjacent residential neighborhood. If you remember, C2 doesn't allow big gas stations or drive-throughs, or multiple drive-throughs, which is kind of typical with how drive-throughs have been operating. This is ordinance 3023. Those parcels are all listed there. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which labels this area as basically mixed residential / commercial. It applies to, so the existing is C1 and RL1, and the proposed is C2. And we will be reviewing any site plans for compliance with this ordinance. One of the things is that this particular parcels are under the sewer moratorium still. 7 years on and counting that this is still on the sewer moratorium. So a large-scale redevelopment would be contingent on that being lifted. Who knows when that's going to happen? So the kind of what has been proposed is how do we make use of the existing parcels and existing buildings as they are. Several different potential tenants have contacted staff about whether or not that they would fit in the zoning here. Indicated that, like an Amazon reseller would not. That's basically freight movement or whatever. The last one that I think it was like a tire, like refitter rim store would not. That is C3 or above. The last one that contacted with interest in the smaller building was a sort of a single plumber, like a self plumber that had been operating out of his home as a home-based business. We're kind of looking at some zoning considerations because I think if you go by the very technical letter of the law, it says that like a home-based contractor that goes to other properties needs to be in an industrial zone, which would be C3 or above. However, the same thing would probably be allowed in a residential zone, so we need to clean that up. That being said, I think it's basically the difference of, okay, this is an HVAC company, like the Revere Electric is the manufacturing one, and one guy who's a plumber. There's a huge difference in use there. So that is kind of what is on the table here. I don't know, I know one of you lives near right there, and I've drove by there recently. There have been some numerous like updates and cosmetic improvements to the property that have been long been kind of left aside. So the additional fiscal impact is that the village will consider a fiscal impact on any site plan reviews or land division applications, and additional considerations is that this corner is difficult to occupy because of the sewer moratorium. So we believe that the change zoning will keep tenants on the property, and I do believe that the applicant is here for any questions. But if you have any questions of me.
Robin, the applicant is requesting to go from B1 to B2, and you, staff is recommending C2.
Oh, yeah, so all of our Bs changed to Cs.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of the bigger zoning rewrite that we had, mostly because of TID 5 parcels, the industrial M1, M2, M3, and then the business B1, 2, 3, 4, and BP were all kind of merged into C1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For the most part, those correspond with how they used to be. So like a C1 is equivalent to a B1, and a C2 is equivalent to a B2.
Okay.
Question in regards to the 5 parcels. You got one that's landlocked or road locked, and why would we not be rezoning that to make like 3909 one parcel, so that, because if you do the 4 parcels along the frontage, that back parcel is landlocked?
Yeah. So I mean, it's an existing parcel as is. So like, we can't like de-exist it or whatever. So, but I think the intention is to merge the parcels in the future.
Yeah, that's what so I'm getting at, trying to think whether that should be done beforehand or not, or is that something that,
That could be, sure.
okay.
Well, we do. Do we have the applicant here? Yes. Would you come up and we can ask you some questions? Give us your name and address, please. And want to thank you beforehand for your patience.
Spodek. I live at 5440 River Hills Road in Caledonia.
Yeah, my question is what are your plans, because that back lot is going to be, not accessible.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I've owned that house on the corner of MM and 38 my family's owned it for 75 years. My dad and my grandfather built it after my dad came home from the Second World War. So we've been there, and then next door was Jack, who had a machine shop. And I've known Jack 50 years, and he just recently passed away. And the daughters, they had a Quonset hut on the property that fell down. Jack kind of let the property go into disrepair. I stuck a fair amount of money and cleaned the property up. That's what it really needed, and I want to rent it now. Actually, I got a plumber, PM Plumbing, and a good guy. I've cleaned up the property. I'm going to maintain all the property. I'll cut the grass. I'm going to do the landscaping. I'm not a hillbilly, and I don't like crap. So, it's going to be clean and taken care of. My long-term goal is to sell it, is to sell that whole parcel, and that's the idea. I don't have anybody to give it to. The next family down the road doesn't want it. My daughter doesn't want it. So, the idea here is just actually Jack's daughters came to me, said, would you be interested in purchasing it? Because, it would have, otherwise, I don't know what they would have actually done with it, probably, and I wanted to protect my property, so I picked it up, cleaned it up. I'm ready to rent it. And really, the zoning changes because I can bring in the plumber. You know, that's the only reason why. And like I say, it'll be maintained until I can find a developer. And I've had developers, you know, come to the property and ask to develop, but I have no sewer. So, you know, that's the main obstacle.
You have done a great job in cleaning that whole area up. Kudos to that.
Yeah, it
'Cause
took a
I'm the
lot
one you
of
referred to
job.
that lives there. I drive by that every day. and
Oh,
it's
yeah. Jack,
vast improvement.
Jack was a collector.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Then I'd be looking for a motion.
Chairman Driver, I will make a motion to approve 3909 Northwestern Avenue zoning map amendment, ZMA 2311.
Yes, 2312?
Sorry, no, this is Northwestern
Oh,
Avenue.
this says 2311 and this says 2312.
Oh, it's 2312 on the paperwork.
Robin, your recommendation says 12 and your ordinance in the caption says -11. What do you want our motion to do? Refer to the ordinance number?
The ordinance number.
Ordinance 30-2023?
The Spring Street one says it's 23.
Yeah,
Well-
Northwestern, well, on the project description, it
Okay.
says 11. See, it says,
There's the.
Hold on, I can pull,
we're
I
on
can,
item number four, right?
Because 12 is the Spring Street, the following
Yeah,
one.
3909 Northwestern Avenue zoning map amendment, ZMA 2311.
okay.
Joe, is that?
I will
you got that now?
absolutely confirm that.
Yeah, because in the recommendation, it's got 2312, which is the Spring Street one that's coming up again, I believe.
Maybe my paperwork is messed up.
No, you are
He's
correct in that.
right. He's
12
right.
is the Spring Street, the next
11,
one.
yes, 11 is Northwestern,
Okay.
12 is the Spring Street.
Yeah,
so-
it's just under the, you're right, that was a good catch on that. All right, so I still made the motion.
I second that.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, Mr. Spodek, and again, thank you for your patience. Next is Spring Street zoning map amendment, ZMA 2312.
Okay, so this is a sort of a continuation based off what we had talked about earlier. John Kuhn, representing the property owners, requested permission to amend the zoning map from parcel land along Spring Street from AG2 to C3. The application is on behalf of the landowner who wishes to prepare the land for sale. The comprehensive plan recommends mixed business park / commercial development for the property. The property lies within tax incremental district number 7. And then it is consistent with the master plan as well, because that recommends mixed business park and residential. The description of the C3 district is that it accommodates high-intensity commercial, moderate-intensity manufacturing, and upper-story residential uses. The village intends the C3 district to support these regional uses concentrated within large nodes or along regional commercial corridors, of which the frontage road certainly applies to that. Everything along the frontage road pretty much is, if it has utilities, it's C3 or C4, or in some cases, a couple of C5s. So, trying to get away from that, but, yeah. So, and the fiscal impact is as is reported in CSM 2315, which was approved. We don't have any conditions for approval, and we recommend the rezone. We actually have, hopefully, there will be a couple of very exciting things coming as a result of this land division and rezone.
Questions of staff?
Sam, Robin, I just want to make sure.
Compliment accepted.
Your summary talks about the comprehensive plan recommends mixed BP / commercial development for the property. I just want to make sure that the requested rezoned to C3 falls within that mixed BP commercial development of the property master plan?
Your laser-like focus is very appreciated. Yes, the BP designation in our master plan does not really match the current zones as they are named commercial. The commercial aspect covers both of them, but the designation of business park in our master plan is anachronistic now that we have refined it. So we're still kind of like applying the one-to-one conversions with that cases, but the long-term goal is that we clean up the master plan, and we have designs on doing that within the next, time, pretty soon. So, but because the conversions were pretty much like straight, like B1 went to C1 and so on and so forth, there's a formula that makes it easy to kind of dial back and understand, okay, well, the master plan like applies to this or that.
Okay, Sam, thanks.
Man, I'm super flattered.
Okay. Any other questions? Would you like to hear from the applicant? There were some other issues that were brought up earlier that said maybe they'd be covered in this next area. If not,
Well, I guess, if the applicant is here yet, then we can talk about what the plan is as far as the timing, and is there somebody already, looking at this parcel, and what they can share with us would be nice, if they can.
is there anything there? Okay. Get your name and address, please.
I'll accept that compliment too. Thank you.
Just to let you know, we do have a site plan application in, and that would be public record if that clears that up at all.
Thank you, Robin. Hi, John Kuhn, 731 North Jackson Street, Suite 700, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202. I am here on behalf of the property owner, I-94 and Associates LLP. Happy to answer any questions. Here this afternoon also is a representative of the proposed user, the buyer of the property. So if you have any more specific about their use, but it would be a single user purchasing the property, developing their headquarters.
Single user for which property, all three?
No, for Lot 1.
Thank you.
For Lot 1. For Lot 2, we do have a buyer. They have the property under contract. They're not as far along with their development plans. And also to address some of the questions that came up before with Lot 3 on the approved CSM. It's really by way of the wetlands, which have all been delineated, that creates buildable area that is separated by the wetlands and the environmental corridor. So we kind of have to punt on that for right now. Would that make more sense to be adjoined with properties to the west for future development? Probably, but to get the CSM approved so these projects can move forward, we need to address access and utilities now.
I think that even though with, you look at something on a piece of paper, and it's like, oh, look at all these wetlands, and this is gonna be tough. And yet, for a single user coming in who hasn't identified themselves, but is thinking of putting together a company headquarters, what a beautiful environment. Because you'll be able to use those wetlands for your employees and customers that might, or whoever's coming to that facility, to your headquarters. It'll be it could be an absolutely amazing environmental feature. And you see a lot of those buildings along the I-94 corridor, particularly as you go south into Illinois. They're very protective of all their wetland areas along the I. And you see some absolutely beautiful buildings nestled in, surrounded by ponds and waterways and natural vegetation. So I think it's potentially going to be very nice.
Would you like to say anything?
Any other questions of John?
No, no, I'm fine.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Then if there's no further discussion,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. The Plan Commission moves to recommend approval of ordinance 31-2023 Spring Street zoning map amendment ZMA 23-12.
Second.
motion a second. Any further comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Just,
And we will be seeing them next month.
good.
Can we take 5?
Did you guys want a break before?
Yes, let's take 5 minutes. Call the meeting back to order. Robin? We're calling it back to order. Next on the agenda is Mr. Baumgard. Let us have it.
All right. I will try to be fairly brief. I know it's already been a long meeting for everybody, so appreciate your patience. So I'm going to report on Parks and Recreation and your report. We started this a couple of years ago, so we'll cover revenue, participation, just some general projects and such that have been done over the past year. So most of you are familiar with our recreation programs, but here's a quick snapshot of some of the things we do for recreation. We do our playgrounds program, softball, t-ball, our drop-in program out at Polzine Park. We do sand volleyball, kickball, and we've expanded some of the programming with Campus Park this year. So we now had a playground program out at campus in the afternoon. And so you'll see when we get to the participation numbers that we did see an increase in that particular program. But first up is our softball. You'll notice the softball numbers kind of fluctuate. Not a ton of significant change when you look at the total number. Percentages are a little skewed for some of the lower programs. If you look at the boys and girls 12 to 14, we did start doing co-ed for that particular age group, and the reason for that large drop off would be a whole singular girls team had moved to fast pitch softball that had played previously with us. So if you look at that, that's 11 to 12 girls right there. We do underhand slow pitch softball. They want to get into fast pitch, which is what you'll eventually play in high school. So if you have an entire team that leaves, it's going to skew the numbers pretty big. So that's what that accounts for there. Other than that, things remain pretty stagnant. What we're hoping is with this upcoming year in 24, with the leagues taking place at Campus Park, that we'll see a bump up in registration. So for the playgrounds program, as you can see, we had a significant increase in participation. I'm sorry, that those should say 22, 23. I'm not sure. I might have sent Robin the wrong slide for that one. But so the numbers are correct. We did see a small decrease in our earlier, our 4 to 8 age group, but then a significant jump for that 8 to 13 year olds. Sand volleyball remained constant, and then a slight decrease for our kickball numbers. So here are just the next few slides, just going to be some of the special events. This is our Dollar Buggy Parade. The one down at Polzine was in conjunction with the Cop House down there. The little bit wider shot was out at Campus Park. They all put all their decorations, everything in the parking lot, and took it through for all the parents to check out their bikes for the 4th of July. This was from our Cottontail Trail took place back in April. And this was the very, very wet trunk or treat event. For those who don't remember that particular weekend, we had torrential rain and wind. We ultimately ended up having to close down about a half hour early. But our vendors and everybody still stuck it out for that entire time frame, so we couldn't thank them enough for their participation. And we still had probably close to 500 people come through that, even with the weather. So
I was going to come down to that because we were already in Oak Creek, and then it just the heavens opened up, and I was like, nope, not going to do it.
Yeah, so a rain or shine event, but again, we were still pleased with the participation. And then the most recent event that we had was our tree lighting, just a little over a week ago. So we figured there were about 250 to 300 people who had come throughout the duration of that event. So
That's really good.
So when you look at the overall revenue for the recreation department, we did exceed our projected revenue for the year. We had originally had projected 45,000 for revenue coming in. We ended up hitting just over 50. And this is a breakdown of how those totals came to be. you can see that even though we had our softball numbers a little bit fluctuated, we see that we had a little bit more non-resident participation, which increases the value, the dollar amounts for the year. So that's why that increase is a little bit higher. And that's the same thing for T-ball. Same exact numbers as last year, but then you have a few more non-residents who pay a little bit more for the program. And the big jump obviously is from the playgrounds program. And one thing I should have noted with the playgrounds program, the participation numbers do not include the drop-in. So we average anywhere from 25 to 30 people at Polzine throughout the summer. For those of you who may remember, we did increase some of our staff down there to accommodate just the popularity of that program. And that's due in part to a grant we get each year from S.E. Johnson to help cover those costs for that program. So we really appreciate their support year in and year out for that. So that covers the recreation side of things. So moving into parks, our picnic permits, we did see a jump this year. We're hoping for a little bit larger increase, but we did end up hitting our mark for our picnic permits. We had projected about a $5,000 to $6,000 increase in revenue for reservations overall, including our parks building. And we did end up hitting that mark, even though Campus Park was not available to even have any larger scaled events. And then the picnic shelter wasn't even available until August. So as you can see, we had a significant increase in the use of the parks building. And that does not include the Tuesday Card Club, who is out there on a regular basis. So you can add 52 additional reservations to that. But again, that would significantly skew the numbers. So these are paid reservations for it.
George, the numbers here, you're saying it shows it a minus 543, and then the other one I see down here is Smolenski Partials is down 333. That should be up, right?
Yeah, you are correct. So it is the right percentage, but it is
It's a
should be a
plus.
plus. Yeah.
Plus, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, we had increase in for just single-use rentals out at Smolenski, which are during the week, and then increase out at Droz. And at Campus Park, we ended up having 7 people utilize that during August and September when we were able to start issuing permits out there. So obviously one of the largest projects that we had was Campus Park. This happened to be in the fall when after a rain, you can see we had a nice rainbow come through over the band shell. So kind of just, you can see that highlights everything from that, from the park, from the road there. And then most of our events would not be able to happen without support. This year we had even more people provide support to our department. Real School, they had participated in helping us with stuffing all of our eggs for the Cottontail Trail. We had the Alumni Association from the PD. They assisted with volunteers at each of our events. Union Grove, we had several students from that high school help out running games for both Trunk or Treat, Cottontail Trail, and the tree lighting, as well as representatives from HOSA at Case High School. And then the South Shore Realtors Association provided volunteers and did all of the plantings this past fall out at the rain garden out at Sheridan Woods. So originally we were going to do that in May, but due to those drought conditions, we postponed all of our plantings until the fall here. So they came out and spent 2 to 3 hours planting all of the perennials. We had over, I think, 120 perennials that they helped plant out there. And so again, that's just a quick snapshot of our department, and try to keep it brief for everybody here. I saw a long agenda for you, but be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Well, I just appreciate seeing, since you've come on board, doing these things, just things increasing all the way around. More opportunity.
People responding to the
Yeah,
opportunities, I think, is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait for next summer to see the park when we've had a winter for it to, you know.
Yeah, we're excited.
Do you have a grand opening date set?
Not at this moment, but it will be and I'm sure in the making here very soon. I would anticipate it would be late May. We do have Relay for Life will be coming back, so it'll likely be shortly before that, and they're usually the first or second week in June. So,
All right. Thank you, George.
thank you.
Very nice.
Next up is Robin. What do you have for us?
I got some updates. Normally I can see the screen, right, over there, so. But so, I'm just gonna go through our annual planning report, and talking about some of our stats, year-long stats, and overall, I'll make it short. So, oh, my mic is not on. Thank you. Yes, so basically that's the annual planning report. These are the number of permits that we have processed. As you can see, a pretty standard amount. We haven't been like really high on the sign permits for a number of years now. I think it's because that we got rid of the temporary sign permits, and so there was a less amount overall approved. Okay.
Do you remember offhand what the conditional uses were? 2 of them.
Oh. One was the one on the lakefront in order to change that, the setback.
Is that Case?
No, it wasn't Case. It was a house. Like, they basically had to build another building, and they needed to change the setback from the bluff.
Right.
And that is counted as a conditional use.
Okay.
I do not remember what the other one was off the top of my head. We don't really get that many of them anymore. That's a feature, not a bug. So certificate of so basically we did, 42 sign permits. We've changed how they've been billed, but most of the sign permits were between $100 and $200. 26 site plan reviews, some minor land divisions. It's funny that minor land divisions and CSMs have been consistent like for the past 2 decades. It's always around between 10 and 20 a year. And an uptick in zoning variance requests, so 7 for this past year, and I don't think any have lost. I think they're 7 for 7. So apparently our zoning, they have a hearing tonight, so they've been more Santa Claus than the Grinch. So we'll have to talk about that. As far as active permits that are out, we have a lot of certificate of occupancies out, and it's completely on the fire department. So they have probably 10 outstanding occupancy certificates to review and inspect. Ed says he's almost never in the office, and he's doing inspections all day, and don't know what to do about that. That's just how it is. All right. And then
Those single family or a mixture of residential and commercial, or?
Mostly commercial.
It's all commercial?
All commercial, yeah.
Okay.
Commercial would also include multifamily commercial, anything with more than 3 units or more, but yeah, so. Okay, so moving on to municipal complaints, our favorite topic. So there we go. As you can see, we've completed those complaints for blight, tree damage, junk vehicles. We have a number of active complaints in a total of about 18. Some of those are complete. It's just they haven't been updated because we haven't gone back and done a re-inspection or anything like that. There's also, these are the cases that are pending court. 4 of those are pending to go to circuit court under our new, the village board authorized the village attorney to take some nuisance properties to circuit court. And the other ones are in our municipal court. our intern Emily has been helping me with the court cases and whatnot most judiciously, and yeah, it's always a tough process because it's the one thing that like finding somebody doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It still exists. So you kind of, these things drag on forever. Like some of these cases have been around since 22 and are still in the court systems. So, all right. Any questions on municipal complaints? Nope. Moving on. All right. So the big picture for community development in 2023, we've mentioned a couple of these. The Leo Living project on Spring and V, 374 units. That the project was delayed to start in 2025. I think that was a financial market thing, just interest rates and whatnot. They've purchased the property, they're locked in, all that sort of stuff, but they have decided to delay a year. Pike River Crossing, KRN 31, the phase 1 is 92 units or thereabout. They just filed their completed plat. It feels like it's been taken forever, but they had to get a water agreement. I'm sure you all know. So they plan on starting in 2024. Tivoli Green, phase 2, 90th and Megan's Way right here, 230 units. It's currently under construction. They're moving too. I'm pretty sure they're taking advantage of this mild December and making some progress. Fiduciary Spring Street, that's on Spring and V. They're in the financing and civil engineering phase. They're expecting an early summer 2024 start. And the good news is they won't be affected by the Leo delay due to TID 7. There was a chance that they would be delayed because they were expecting Leo to bring utilities to where their property started. And with the delay, that, obviously put that in jeopardy, but we use the financial power of well, we haven't done it all yet. There's still some things, but I think especially with the development along the frontage road, we think we can get that done. The Fiduciary Seasons 3-story, that's on Braun and 31, and that's right next to the Seasons. That's 200 units, 4 three-story buildings. That's on indefinite hold while they are pursuing their other projects. I don't think they filed for an extension so that the approval still is valid, but they are pursuing the Spring Street project first. And the Via Vita project is also currently underway. They've broken ground on that, right? Yeah, so they're moving too, and that it was 230 units. Also, there's that little tiny company called Microsoft. You might have heard of it. That's a thing, and they will be, I believe, in front of this body several times over the next year and years. So we will see that when it comes on. So the next slide is more of internal. We've done this year. We've done our zoning updates, as we've talked about earlier. We have the new C districts. We have ensured compliance with Wisconsin Act 16, which made some changes to zoning laws, especially with regards to localities basically willy-nilly denying certain applications for no reason. It's been nicknamed the anti-NIMBY bill. So we made sure that we were in compliance with the state laws in that. So on a staffing front, Sam left, then Sam came back under different auspices. Yeah, you guys know that? Yeah.
No?
Well, he came back as Von Briesen.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, okay.
This
So
is,
he didn't really,
No, he left. Yeah, he's.
he left.
Yeah, he's contracted.
I mean, it basically was a Scooby-Doo moment, like, he
He's
just
not a
changed his
village
mask.
employee anymore.
So, but I'm being light humored there. So, We have our planning intern, Emily, who you've met, who's been helping us out a lot. That's been great.
Nice job.
And one of our communications staff, Megan, left, and now we have Matt, who's back here. He's been around. He's a very recognizable face. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that this was thing that communications and community engagement will move under administration next year. So they will be departing our department. Looking ahead to 2024, several exciting projects on the agenda, including some of the ones that we discussed today, and didn't exactly quite name, but we will be talking about next month. Sam and I have kind of, because of his increased time demands, we have kind of mapped out local area plan 5 and trying to hit some timetables. So we're going to be working on and finishing chapter 1 to 6 in January and chapter 7 to 9 in February. I'm sure the chapters don't mean anything to you, but they do correspond with the chapters in the comp plan. So 1 to 6 is like housing, transportation, utilities, stuff like that. 7 to 9 is intergovernmental cooperation, land use, which is the big one, and implementation. We plan to get a draft in front of you for the March Plan Convention. Can you please, hold us to it? We're setting it and we're going to hit it. And we're going to do a community engagement afterwards with the mostly completed document and adoption thereafter.
So that would be under the new administration then, right?
I'm not sure. When is the new administration administering? Is that April? After April?
After the election, you mean?
No, after community engagement moves to administration instead of under.
Oh.
Different type of community engagement.
Yes.
So the community engagement, the name of the department, and community engagement, what planners do when we have open houses and talk to the people with the master plan ideas and stuff like that when we source feedback. Sam and I's strategy is to make sure that we have something concrete for them to talk about. Because if we're talking about generalities, like what do you like, what do you don't like, as they say with data science, garbage in, garbage out. So we want to put something in front of them that they can talk about. So that is it.
Robin, quick question.
Yes.
Communications, that's under Matt. Are you also responsible for the website?
Yeah, so Lisa Oley and I are currently working on that.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is that I have been asked that question by 2 or 3 or maybe 5 residents on the website. If a resident has something to complain, you ask them to go on the website and apply online. But when they have to fill the online application, why do they have to log in? Many people say, I don't want to create a new password and log in. They should be able to just write their name and address and submit it online. So it's another pain, which I agree, because every time saying is, oh, now I have to create a password. So just a feedback, I think it should be user-friendly thing and not create password and log in.
From what concepts that we've seen and looked at, I think you're gonna.
Okay. I'm giving you the feedback because I had a couple of people said, just forget it, and then I went and I dropped them hard copy of the complaint form, because these days everything is create your password.
Oh, it's gotten really obnoxious, actually, and very hard to break through. Even if you're familiar with computers, it seems like every system is different and very catchy, and they've got to text you back with a code, and oh my goodness. And I do have a password with the village because I do business with the village, and so they created those portals, I think, to make it easier for the business community.
Yeah.
But as a whole, just for a resident who wants to be able to.
Once a while, who have to log in something about that, they should be make it user friendly.
Yeah.
I'll take a look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
A couple of things about that is that if you do have a user ID and stuff, you can track the progress of your municipal complaint. You know where stage it's at, where the inspection is, what the inspection found it. You get access to like as much as you possibly can to know.
Progress fine, but
Yeah.
if you do it in a hard copy, all you have is name and address, that's how you follow, that's how you follow up the progress, name and the address. And,
Correct.
But you don't have to create a password, make it easy, for people.
Yeah, the other thing is that when you don't have a login online, it could increase fraudulent or anonymous requests or something like that. So, when people, signing it Mickey Mouse or whatever, we would just toss that stuff out, but it does ratchet that up when there's not a account, so to speak. But that's not my field. Well, it won't be.
All right.
It does, it filters out. the
Well,
people
municipal
that
complaints is, but not the
They
website.
have to put their name to it.
Oh,
They're
I have
not
gone
gonna
to,
Right.
every year I go to probably half a dozen residents,
Yeah.
and I give them a hard copy and pick it up, only because they say, forget it, I'm not gonna go through that.
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, just take a look at it.
No, I appreciate it, appreciate
Yeah.
the feedback.
That's it.
I even asked them to file a complaint on that why do I have to log in?
Right, so you wanna file complaint on the complaint system, but you gotta log in, right?
On the complaint process.
Well, yes, you do. You gotta follow the rules.
Do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Merry